Chapter 141, Setting Up the Lucky Mystic Realm. The secret manual was prepared, and his prank was also ready to go. As for whether there was really a fool who would really cut himself after reading the first page, Chuzan did not care. Of course, if there really was a fool who cut himself, in order to encourage the other party to work hard, Chuzan would also leave behind a shred of hope, stating that after they had mastered this cultivation technique, it would allow them to regrow their third leg. As such, even if a fool were to cut himself, in order to regrow his third leg, he would naturally cultivate diligently, working even harder than anyone else. As for other precious materials that could be used to regenerate limbs and organs, the other party would definitely look for them. Such precious materials were extremely rare, and it was not easy to find them. One would also need to be extremely powerful to obtain them. Chuzan had also considered that if it was a woman who entered the lucky mystic realm of fortune, she might ignore the secret manual, believing it to only be for men. If she did not continue reading, she would miss out on the cultivation technique. In that case, it could only be said that her luck was insufficient. After the secret manual was prepared, Chuzan began to prepare the artifacts. Firstly, a divine artifact was a must. If there was not even a divine artifact inside, it was not worth of being called a lucky mystic realm. He prepared a unique weapon for the wielder of the evil-warding immortal scripture. Embroidery needles. Each embroidery needle carried with it a thin thread, and there were a total of 9,000 needles. This was a complete set. Reading on MyBoXNO vs. L.com, please. The higher one's cultivation, the more embroidery needles one could use. This set of embroidery needles belonged to the heaven level. As for other divine artifacts, he left behind 2 long and thin daggers. Apart from the heaven-level embroidery needles, Chuzan also refined a set of emperor-level thin daggers. After the artifacts were ready, he placed medicinal pills and the like inside the mystic realm as well. First, there were medicinal pills for healing. After all, those who entered the lucky mystic realm by chance might do so after being hunted down and injured. Therefore, healing medicinal pills were a must. The lowest quality pills he provided were also emperor-level pills. Wang Luo had refined quite a number of these, and Chuzan directly took a few bottles. There were all kinds of healing medicinal pills, including those for healing the soul injuries, mental injuries, and spiritual injuries. He prepared a bottle of medicinal pills that could heal damage done to a cultivator's foundation. He prepared 3 medicinal pills that could raise one's talent and aptitude. He also prepared some relatively rare heavenly and earthly treasures. Chuzan checked once and made sure that he had not left anything out. He then stuffed all the things he had prepared into the lucky mystic realm. While holding the lucky mystic realm in his palm, Chuzan looked around and thought about where he should set it up. He then figured out where he wanted to place it. He would set it up at the border between the southern region and the other regions. There was a vast mountain range here with all kinds of restrictions and barriers. After the laws of heaven and earth in the southern region were restored, they would be able to travel between the other regions. Moreover, some people who had offended their enemies and were being hunted down would usually escape to the mountains. Let's place it at the border with the eastern region. Chuzan made his decision. With a wave of his hand, the lucky mystic realm soared into the sky and disappeared into the horizon. After the lucky mystic realm was activated, it could be placed at the corresponding location according to Chuzan's wishes. There was no need for Chuzan to go there personally or for him to send people there to do it. In the vast mountain range at the border of the southern region with the eastern region, there were restrictions everywhere. It was filled with dangers, and demonic beasts ran amok. The deeper one went, the greater the danger and the more restrictions there were. There were even Emperor Realm demonic beasts here. Moreover, the spiritual energy in the depths of the mountains was chaotic and filled with all kinds of dangers. It was even blocked by an ancient formation array. It was due to these dangers that it was almost impossible to pass through the mountains and reach the other regions. This was why countless half-step Emperor Realm experts in the southern region died of old age, as they could not leave the southern region. The passage to leave the southern region safely was guarded very secretively, and it was not without its dangers either. It was known that the safest way to leave the southern region was to contact the Black Moon Tower and entrust them with the task of escorting you out of the southern region. The Black Moon Tower controlled a relatively safe passageway out of the southern region. However, the commission price was too high. There were very few experts who could afford it. Once they left the southern region, no one would come back. Even if they wanted to come back, it would be extremely difficult. Those who had reached the Emperor Realm were not allowed to enter the southern region. Hence, the situation in the outer regions was unknown to the other powers and experts. Due to the special characteristics of the vast mountains at the border areas of the southern region, there were countless experts who went there. Especially those cultivators who had offended large factions and were being hunted down. They would take the risk to enter the vast mountains to avoid being caught. Over time, some organizations gradually appeared in the vast mountains at the border to protect the fleeing cultivators. A stream of light flew across the sky. In an instant, it arrived at the vast mountains at the border between the southern region and the eastern region. The stream of light descended. Boom! An ancient palace appeared for a short while. It was dazzlingly brilliant. After falling into the ground, it disappeared without a trace. Deep in the mountain range, near the borders of the eastern region, there were remnants of ancient barrier and restriction formation arrays, but these were unable to stop the stream of light. Apart from a few demonic beasts that noticed this stream of light, no one else noticed anything. The demonic beasts came by to investigate, but found nothing. After Chuzan had set up the lucky mystic realm, he would have to wait for the predestined person to enter it and find the great treasures and opportunities he had placed within. After the treasures had been claimed, he would retrieve the lucky mystic realm. He was not far from the heaven realm. Over the course of the following days, Chuzan cultivated with all his might. Occasionally, he would give some pointers to Moluantian. He did not know if it was just his imagination, but he felt that there was something wrong with Moluantian. The latter was clearly a white-robed monk who possessed an extraordinary temperament. However, there was also something slightly demonic about him. Moreover, he was chanting Buddhist scriptures and repeating some of Chuzan's words. Occasionally, he seemed to enter a state of realization. Chuzan had no idea what he had comprehended though. Until now, Moluantian had not traveled outside to spread Buddhist Dharma. Instead, he had been concentrating on cultivating and comprehending Buddhist Dharma, as well as practicing divine techniques. Chuzan did not have any objections to this. After all, Moluantian was not strong enough. When he reached the 9th level of the Truth Realm, he would go out to train, accumulate his foundation, deepen his comprehension, and prepare to break through to the Emperor Realm. This monk isn't acting quite right. Did he misunderstand some of my words? Chuzan muttered. As he observed Moluantian, he felt that there was probably some sort of misunderstanding somewhere. He really should not have said those words in the first place to deceive him. He then looked at Ding Yu. Although that guy was no longer behaving in that manner, things were still not quite right. He was afraid of getting beaten up, so he no longer dared to use Su Shan'er to temper his sword heart and raise his sword Dao realm. Instead, he carved a few female statues and placed them around his cultivation. Occasionally, he would mutter, "Seeing a woman as a woman, seeing a woman as not a woman, seeing a woman as a woman. I'm starting to understand." Chuzan was frustrated. This disciple was hopeless. He should not have gone so far in deceiving him back then. What was even more frustrating was that Wang Luo had been led astray recently. Out of inspiration, Ding Yu had once asked Wang Luo to refine an illusion pill for him. After swallowing it, he used the many illusions to temper his state of mind and sought to break through the 3rd stage of the Way of the Sword. When the illusions disappeared, he had a serious look on his face. A woman actually appeared in the illusions. I'm still not strong enough. Chapter 142, 3 years of nurturing a saber, entering the true realm in a flash. ? Under his influence, Wang Luo also swallowed an illusion pill to refine pills in the illusion to improve his state of mind. His intention was to reach a realm where he had no woman in his heart and would naturally become a god when refining pills. In the end, he failed to refine those pills despite being an extremely skilled alchemist. Because of this, he jumped to the wrong conclusion. It was all because there were too many beauties in his illusion. If he hallucinated about pill concoctions instead, how could he fail? As such, this pair of disciples consumed illusion pills every day with the intention of improving their mental state of mind. Chuzan was exasperated. FCK. These two scoundrels were full of vigor and vitality. It would be abnormal if there were no beauties in their illusions. Unless of course they cut off their 3rd legs. Forget it, he would let them do whatever they want. Chuzan could not be bothered to care anymore. He secretly warned himself that the next time he accepted a disciple, he should not fool around. Master, we have doubts. After using illusion pills to temper themselves for a period of time, Ding Yu and Wang Luo sought out Chuzan. They looked very dejected. What doubts? Chuzan was speechless. FCK. Was this divine retribution? Reading on Mibo XNO vs L. Calm, please. Master, every time I enter an illusion, a woman will appear. How do I break this illusion? Ding Yu asked solemnly. Master, me too, Wang Luo followed up. You guys have a mental block. You're too obsessed with being or not. Chu Zan could only continue to bluff. Being or not, it's just like being true or not. It's all about the heart. If you're obsessed with being true or not, how can you be open-minded? How can you focus on one thing and cultivate the great Tao? Ding Yu and Wang Luo fell into deep thought. After a long while, Ding Yu suddenly said, "Thank you, Master. I understand now." Wang Luo also said, "Thank you, Master. I understand, too." Chu Zan's mouth twitched. He did not know what these two disciples had understood from what he said. Ding Yu and Wang Luo returned to the pocket dimension to continue cultivating. After swallowing the illusion pills, they were no longer disturbed by the illusion anymore. Wang Luo's pill refinement was not affected at all after consuming the illusion pill. In fact, he even improved. Chu Zan nodded. He was finally back on track. Time passed quickly. The 10-year seclusion milestone was getting closer and closer. Chu Yun had returned a few times during this period. She refined a pill to increase Chu Pingfan's aptitude and gave it to him. The result was self-evident. Chu Pingfan's talent lay in the extreme Tao. It was a very special and rare talent. Chu Yun was a little disappointed. She felt that the level of the treasures that she used to refine the pill was insufficient, so she would continue to search for treasures as she consolidated her foundation. Her goal was to break through to the half-step Emperor realm. After all, one could not directly break through to the Emperor realm in the southern region, so she could only settle for breaking through to the half-step Emperor realm. Chu Yun was still young and had the potential to reach the Emperor realm, so she was not in a hurry. If she broke through to the half-step Emperor realm, she would technically stand at the peak of the southern region. For the time being, this would have to do. Chu Zan did not help Chu Yun break through to the Emperor realm immediately. Her cultivation foundation was not strong enough, and the opportunity to break through had not come yet. Mo Luantian had already broken through to the 9th level of the Truth Realm and had begun to travel through the Demon Zone. There had been no news of Xiao Liang, so he probably had not reached the southern region yet. Chu Zan was not worried about whether or not Xiao Liang could enter the southern region. With Lu Piao, a Heaven Realm expert, by his side, he would not face any major issues entering the southern region. Moreover, Xiao Liang cultivated the concealment technique that Chu Zan had taught him, so he could completely avoid detection. On this day, Chu Zan looked at Chu Pingfan, who was sitting cross-legged inside the universe space. The wooden saber made of ordinary wood was placed horizontally on his knees. Chu Pingfan's eyes were slightly closed, and his young face still appeared dull. He still looked stupid. Perhaps this would not change even after he grew up. The impression he gave people was that he was a stupid kid who lacked talent. From his appearance, who would know that Chu Pingfan's talent was extraordinary? In the blink of an eye, Chu Pingfan was 9 years old. He had almost nurtured his saber for 3 years. The current Chu Pingfan was already on the verge of successfully nurturing his saber. His cultivation was about to take flight. At this moment, the aura on his body had already started to leak out. Su Shaner, Ding Yu, and Wang Luo all realized that Chu Pingfan was not ordinary. The inexplicable aura he released gave them the feeling that he was extremely powerful and indomitable, as if he had reached the pinnacle. This was especially so when it came to Chu Pingfan's wooden saber. It actually exuded a faint luster, and the blade had become mysteriously sharper. What was even stranger was that it seemed to merge with Chu Pingfan. It still looked like a wooden saber. Su Shaner and the other two knew that this wooden saber was extraordinary. Although it was called an ordinary saber, Ding Yu had once tried to use an Emperor-level weapon to cut it, but the wooden saber was not damaged at all. The Emperor-level weapon did not even leave the slightest mark on it. If Chu Pingfan could cultivate and swing this wooden saber, Ding Yu had no doubt that the Emperor-level weapon would be sliced in half by the wooden saber. After realizing that the wooden saber was extraordinary, Ding Yu even asked Chu Zan for a wooden sword. This wood is not suitable for you. Up until now, only Pingfan is suited to using a weapon made of this wood. After hearing Chu Zan's reply, Ding Yu could only give up on the idea. They all knew that Chu Pingfan's talent seemed to be extremely poor, even to the point that he looked stupid. However, in reality, his talent was extremely high. In fact, he was even more talented than them. However, Chu Pingfan's talent was different from the others. Chu Zan looked at Chu Pingfan. It had been 3 years since Chu Yuan left. The power that he had left in Chu Yuan's body had not been activated. This meant that Chu Yuan had not encountered any fatal threats to his life and was still alive. Perhaps he was not in a good situation. Chu Pingfan had actually been holding back his anger all this while. How could he not be angry after seeing his parents separated and his father leaving his hometown in search of his mother? He wanted to fight for his parents. He wanted to restore his dignity. He still remembered what that person said. Look at you, what kind of trash did you give birth to after you married a piece of trash? I've never seen such a useless child. He's tarnishing the bloodline of our family. Some fluctuations appeared on Chu Pingfan's face. Calm your heart, Chu Zan said softly. Chu Pingfan's expression became calm, and the aura around his body became extremely sharp. The wooden saber on his knees suddenly floated up. An overbearing, fierce, and indomitable aura surrounded the ordinary wooden saber. It was gradually strengthening. Rumble. In the universe space, the aura of the great Tao spread out. It started pouring into the wooden saber in Chu Pingfan's body. Mortal realm, profound realm, spirit realm. 3 years had passed. Now that the saber had been nurtured, the transformation began. Chu Pingfan's aura began to increase. Very rapidly he stepped into the profound realm, followed by the spirit realm. Su Shaner and the other two had shocked expressions. What kind of talent was this? What kind of cultivation technique was this? Originally, they thought that Chu Pingfan was going to transform and advance into the profound realm. However, even after stepping into the profound realm and the spirit realm, he still had no intention of stopping. Chu Zan's eyes were filled with anticipation. The higher the realm Chu Pingfan achieved, the more bountiful the rewards he would receive. It was also about time for him to break through to the heaven realm. After Chu Pingfan broke through to the spirit realm, he did not stop there. His cultivation continued to increase. Void realm, unity realm, and then the truth realm. After breaking through to the true realm, his breakthrough slowed down. Su Shaner and the other two were stunned. After 3 years of cultivation, he broke through to the truth realm in an instant. If this news spread out, the entire 9 zones would be shocked, right? Moreover, Chu Pingfan was only 9 years old. Boom. Finally, Chu Pingfan stopped after breaking through to the 3rd level of the truth realm. Chapter 143, Breaking Through to the Heaven Realm, Heavenly Tribulation. Following Chu Pingfan's successful breakthrough, the system reward that Chu Zan was looking forward to also arrived. Your nephew, Chu Pingfan, cultivated the extreme Tao under your guidance. He instantly broke through to the truth realm and became the 9th truth realm cultivator under the age of 10 in history. You have been rewarded with 300 years worth of cultivation. You taught the 9th truth realm cultivator under the age of 10 in history, who is also the first extreme Tao cultivator to enter the truth realm at the age of 9. You have been rewarded with the Aurora technique. Chu Zan was pleasantly surprised. The system's reward was beyond his expectations. Moreover, Chu Pingfan was the 9th truth realm cultivator under the age of 10 in history. Not to mention, he was the first extreme Tao cultivator to enter the truth realm at the age of 9 in history. As expected, the fact that his disciple had set a record had made the system's reward even more generous. Chu Zan did not receive the cultivation boost reward immediately. Instead, he examined the Aurora technique first. This was a speed technique. He could transform into an Aurora and travel tens of millions of kilometers in an instant. Moreover, when it was cultivated to completion, the technique could ignore spatial restrictions and barriers. It could transform into a ray of light and travel unhindered. After cultivating the Aurora technique, one could escape instantly from almost any dangerous situation. However, it was quite difficult to cultivate the Aurora technique. It would be difficult for Ding Yu and the others to cultivate it to completion. It would be good if they could even master it to some extent. On the contrary, this technique was suitable for Chu Pingfan. For Chu Pingfan, who cultivated the extreme Tao, cultivating the Aurora technique was not that difficult. Chu Pingfan held his wooden saber and walked up to Chu Zan. He raised his head and said, 13th uncle, I've made a breakthrough. Good, very good, try to break through to the Emperor realm before you turn 20. Chu Zan patted his head and felt gratified. I'll try my best. Chu Pingfan nodded his head fiercely and said seriously. When you cultivate, you have to alternate between work and rest. It's not good to focus solely on cultivation. You're still young, so don't be overly obsessed with cultivation. Chu Zan did not want Chu Pingfan to only focus on cultivation. Such a childhood was not good. Even though he knew that Chu Pingfan had been holding back his anger, he still tried his best to allow Chu Pingfan to have the playful childhood that every child deserved. Focusing solely on cultivation was indeed not beneficial. There would be a lot of life experiences and lessons that one would miss out on. 13th uncle, I know. Chu Pingfan nodded. If you want to go out and play, you can. Chu Zan waved his hand to summon the sky-shaking golden rock. You can ride it around and play. When he heard Chu Zan talk about going out to play, Chu Pingfan's eyes lit up and his interest was piqued. He was still a child after all. During the past 3 years, because he was focused on nurturing his saber and cultivating the Heaven's Fate Saber scripture, he did not have the chance to go out to play. Go out and play. There's no need to rush your cultivation. Chu Zan patted his head. Okay, 13th uncle. Chu Pingfan hung the wooden saber on his back. There was no scabbard or binding. The wooden saber directly adhered itself to his back, it was as if it was a part of his body. Holding the heavenly spirit cat in his arms, Chu Pingfan rode the sky-shaking golden rock and left the small courtyard. The heavenly spirit cat was a unique beast. Its strength increased rapidly. After all, it was a reward from the system, so its cultivation speed was extraordinary. It had already reached the first level of the Supreme Realm. The sky-shaking golden rock, on the other hand, was at the 3rd level of the Supreme Realm. With these 2 pets accompanying him, Chu Pingfan would be safe no matter where he went in the southern region. After Chu Pingfan left, Chu Zan chose to receive the cultivation boost reward. 300 years worth of cultivation was instilled into his body. His strength increased rapidly and, once it reached a certain point, it seemed as if he had bridged a natural chasm and arrived at a new world. His soul was transforming, his body was also transforming. The aura of the great Tao was instilled into him. His Tao aura fused with the laws, and his domain was also changing. It was as if it had become a world. The heavens and the earth in his domain only existed for one person. This was what it felt like to reach the heaven realm. The domain power of a heaven realm cultivator was even more perfect. It was like a world. In this world, one's will was the law, and he himself was the heavens. This was the heaven realm. Breaking through to the heaven realm would trigger the heavenly tribulation. Only by passing the heavenly tribulation could one break through to the heaven realm. If one failed to pass the heavenly tribulation, one would die or be heavily injured. There would be no hope for that person to ever reach the heaven realm then, unless he or she obtained a heaven-defying opportunity. Without that heaven-defying opportunity, they would wither with time and never touch the threshold of the heaven realm ever again. Chu Zan was breaking through to the heaven realm, and his soul was transforming. The aura of the great Tao surged and, in the dark, he captured the power of the laws of the great Tao. However, it was still very vague. Chu Zan was not unfamiliar with the laws of the great Tao. Compared to other heaven realm cultivators, his understanding of the great Tao was much stronger. Whether it was the time illusion or the soul cultivation technique, these had all allowed Chu Zan to come into contact with the great Tao ahead of time. When he broke through to the Emperor realm, he had done so by comprehending the laws of the great Tao. When he was at the Emperor realm, he only had a vague understanding of the laws of the great Tao. Along with the time illusion technique, the Tao techniques and some secret techniques that he created had gradually deepened his understanding of the great Tao. It was also because of this that he was able to defeat an ordinary first-level heaven realm expert when he was at the Supreme Realm. At this moment, as he broke through, his understanding of the great Tao became deeper and deeper. His domain became more and more complete. It was more like a world now. At this moment, Chu Zan's divine soul sensed an aura of destruction surging out from the laws of the great Tao. A heavenly tribulation. The outside world was still as calm as ever. There were no signs of a heavenly tribulation out there. Meanwhile, Chu Zan, who was in the middle of breaking through, was facing a heavenly tribulation that was surging toward him. He frowned slightly. He had originally thought that when he broke through, because of the system, there would not be a heavenly tribulation. Unexpectedly, the heavenly tribulation erupted even more violently, and it came directly from the aura of the great Tao. This was not an ordinary heavenly tribulation, but one of a higher level. Chu Zan did not panic at all. He did not dare to say that his cultivation foundation was the best since ancient times, but it was definitely one of the best. Even if the heavenly tribulation came from the great Tao itself, Chu Zan was not afraid at all. His soul power surged and instantly formed a domain. Moreover, Time Plunder was activated, instantly reducing the speed of the heavenly tribulation. He used a series of methods and successfully passed the first wave of the heavenly tribulation. After passing the first wave, Chu Zan felt his strength soar again, and the transformation of his soul was accelerating. A strange wind surged forth from the aura of the great Tao. Then, fire, water, lightning, and other elements continued to surge out. Chu Zan felt pressured. His soul started to shake. He frantically circulated the immovable mountain technique. On one side, he defended, and on the other side, he used his divine techniques. He constantly tempered his soul and strengthened his defense. At the same time, he used all kinds of secret techniques. At this moment, he still had not used any treasures or swallowed any medicinal pills. Internally, Chu Zan was resisting the heavenly tribulation that came from the aura of the great Tao. Externally though, he was still lazily lying on the reclining chair. There was nothing unusual happening in the outside world. Nothing around him indicated that he was breaking through to the heaven realm. Chu Zan continued to resist the heavenly tribulation. At the same time, he felt his body constantly transform, and his strength constantly increase. Perhaps it was because the sturdier his foundation, the deeper his comprehension was of the great Tao, so when he broke through to the heaven state, his strength increased even more. Finally, when the final heavenly tribulation wave passed, Chu Zan completed his breakthrough. Both his divine soul and physical body underwent a transformation. His domain seemed to have become a corporeal world. Chapter 144, Origin Tao Crystal. The time he took to break through to the heaven realm this time was much longer than the time he took to break through to the Emperor realm. Even so, if his cultivation speed became known to the public, it would make all the cultivators who had broken through to the heaven realm in history envious and jealous. It was impossible, too fast. It was even much faster than the time it took others to break through to the Emperor realm. It was simply ridiculous. Chu Zan let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally broken through to the heaven realm. As expected, it was good to stay at home. By staying in the courtyard for less than 10 years, he had already broken through from the mortal realm to the heaven realm. This speed was unmatched, right? You broke through to the heaven realm and became the youngest heaven realm cultivator in history. Because of that achievement, you have been rewarded with a pocket dimension upgrade and origin Tao crystal. What a pleasant surprise. Chu Zan did not expect that breaking through to the heaven realm would trigger the system's reward. Moreover, he was actually the youngest heaven realm cultivator in history. Chu Zan sort of expected it though. After all, he had broken through to the heaven realm in less than 10 years. This was something that had not been accomplished by even the most heaven-defying prodigies since ancient times. A life with a cheat code was indeed different. Chu Zan felt very happy in his heart. He was even more determined to continue staying put. He then chose to receive the rewards. First was the pocket dimension upgrade. As he received the reward, the pocket dimension began to shake. Buddha Nanwu, Su Shaner, Ding Yu, and Wang Luo hurriedly prepared to leave the pocket dimension. Don't panic, I'm just expanding the dimension. Chu Zan's voice was transmitted into the pocket dimension. Expanding the pocket dimension, not to mention Su Shaner and the other two, even Buddha Nanwu's eyes widened in shock. Simply possessing a pocket dimension was already very shocking. Master could actually expand it. The Buddhist Dharma is boundless. Buddha Nanwu pressed his palms together. Upgrading the pocket dimension only took a few minutes. The upgraded pocket dimension had expanded to the size of the northern zone. The density of spiritual energy inside had also increased, and the strongest creature in the pocket dimension now had reached the supreme realm. There were countless natural treasures, and they were even more ancient. After the pocket dimension was upgraded, the ordinary tree grew twice as tall and its foliage became even more luxuriant. Chu Zan then received the other reward, the origin Tao crystal. It was a rhombus-shaped crystal that was slightly larger than a fist. It was filled with a mysterious aura, and the Tao aura lingered around it. It gave people the feeling that the great Tao had just been born. The origin Tao crystal is a crystal that contains the great Tao. It has the ability to absorb Tao aura and evolve Tao principles to increase the effects of the world it is placed into, and can help that world evolve into a great Tao world. After reading the description of the origin Tao crystal, Chu Zan took a deep breath. This was the most precious and highest level treasure he had ever received. It was an origin Tao crystal. It could be placed in the pocket dimension. It had the ability to absorb Tao aura and evolve Tao principles. It could evolve the world into a great Tao world. It could also connect the world to the great Tao, and had all sorts of magical abilities. Of course, if one truly wanted the origin Tao crystal to evolve the world into a great Tao world, they would need to allow it to absorb a huge amount of Tao aura. Tao aura and Tao principles were not things that heaven realm cultivators could provide. Even divine realm cultivators could not provide the Tao aura that nourished the origin Tao crystal. Only Dao Realm experts could do so. Only Dao Realm experts and above possessed the ability to nurture the Origin Dao Crystal. The Origin Dao Crystal could connect to the Great Dao, allowing Dao Realm experts to gain enlightenment on the Great Dao within the world it was placed in. Furthermore, the Origin Dao Crystal could record the aura of Dao Realm experts and above. As long as the aura was recorded, the Great Dao could be used as a medium for Dao Realm experts to communicate with each other. A precious treasure. This was a truly precious treasure. As long as the Origin Dao Crystal was well nourished, he would have the ability to evolve the world into a Great Dao world. Even though Chu Zan had countless treasures, he could not help but get excited when he read the description of the Origin Dao Crystal. After fiddling with the Origin Dao Crystal for a while, he placed it inside the pocket dimension. As such, the pocket dimension was now connected to the Great Dao. It was a pity that there was no Dao aura to nurture it. Otherwise, the Origin Dao Crystal could evolve the world inside the pocket dimension into a Great Dao world. He had to strive to break through to the Dao realm as soon as possible. Chu Zan set another goal for himself. The Divine Realm was no longer a big deal. The Dao Realm was his new goal. Only by breaking through to the Dao Realm would he be able to nurture the Origin Dao Crystal, and only then would he have the chance to evolve the world inside the pocket dimension into a Great Dao world. After the Origin Dao Crystal was placed in the pocket dimension, Buddha Nanwu and the others sensed that the world inside seemed to be different somehow. However, they could not tell exactly how it was different. After all, they could not see the Origin Dao Crystal. I wonder if there are Dao Realm experts in the 9 zones. The Divine Realm was already a legendary existence in the 9 zones. Such experts had only appeared in ancient times. It had been a long time since a Divine Realm expert had appeared in the 9 zones. It seemed like it had been a long time since anyone had broken through to the Divine Realm altogether. Furthermore, there were no legends about the Dao Realm. Most likely, most Heaven Realm experts did not even know that such a realm existed. From their perspective, the Divine Realm was the end of the cultivation path. Only Divine Realm experts might be aware of the existence of the Dao Realm. For example, the human Divine Realm expert that had lured the demons into invading the southern region, and wanted to ascend to the human king's position in the northern zone by obtaining the fate of the human race there, probably did so for the sake of reaching the Dao Realm. Of the 9 zones, the desolate ancient zone was the most mysterious. If there were Dao Realm cultivators in the 9 zones, there was no other place they could be but there. Chu Zan was still miles away from the Dao Realm. If he relied purely on his own cultivation, it would probably take him more than 10 years to break through to the Divine Realm. The Origin Dao Crystal in the pocket dimension emitted a profound aura. It was surrounded by the charm of the Great Dao, as if it was evolving laws. When the Origin Dao Crystal connected to the Great Dao, it could absorb the Dao aura and evolve the laws on its own. However, it was much slower than if it was nourished by the Dao aura. After breaking through to the Heaven Realm, his cultivation speed slowed down again. The next day, the system rewarded him with Heaven Realm cultivation pills as expected. After cultivating for a few days, Chu Zan estimated that 100 years' worth of cultivation was not enough for him to break through even a small realm. It would take him a long time to break through to the Divine Realm unless he received a big reward from the system. However, the system's bigger rewards were not so easy to trigger. Up until now, what he confirmed triggered the system's reward was when his disciples broke through major cultivation realms quickly. Now, Su Shaner, Ding Yu, and Wang Luo had all broken through to the Emperor Realm. The next reward for their breakthrough would only be when the 3 of them broke through to the Supreme Realm. For the time being, only Chu Pingfan's breakthrough was on the horizon, which was worth looking forward to. If he could nurture the youngest Emperor Realm expert in history, the reward would be very generous, right? Now that he had broken through to the Heaven Realm, the myriad heavenly mirror could transport living things. Chu Zan wondered if he could use it to bring Mo Luantian over here. If it was possible, then he would let Mo Luantian enter the pocket dimension to raise his cultivation to the Emperor Realm as soon as possible. In this way, he could obtain a cultivation boost reward. It seemed that he still needed to take in a few more disciples. Chu Zan sighed and glanced at the unactivated lucky mystic realms in the small courtyard. He did not know when he would be able to attract more people with great luck. Perhaps he could rely on the myriad heavenly mirror to actively look for talented people. The 10-year seclusion milestone was approaching, and Chu Zan was looking forward to the reward he would receive. The reward for such a major milestone had to be very generous. Perhaps there might even be rewards that could increase his strength quickly. It was worth looking forward to. Chapter 145, Mighty Heavenly Dragon. Chu Pingfan went out to play for a few days before returning to continue his cultivation. Perhaps staying with Chu Zan for too long had turned Chu Pingfan into a little bit of a shut-in at such a young age. Of course, this was also related to his character. During the following days, Chu Zan often used the myriad heavenly mirror to randomly connect to various places in an attempt to find a monster that could be cultivated. However, he never found one. It was worth mentioning that after Chu Zan broke through to the heaven realm, the number of myriad heavenly mirror marks increased to 9. At the moment, there were still 6 unused marks. Chu Zan tried to transport living creatures through the myriad heavenly mirror, but found that he could only transport creatures below the unity realm, and that the spiritual power consumption for doing so was extremely huge. His current cultivation of the first level of the heaven realm was actually insufficient to transport creatures above the unity realm. This also meant that he was unable to bring Mo Luantian over and send him into the pocket dimension to cultivate. However, when he thought about the fact that Mo Luantian was one of the children of fate in the demon zone, he felt that the latter would likely be able to obtain some fortuitous encounters in the demon zone and rapidly raise his cultivation level. As the 10-year seclusion milestone grew closer and closer, Chu Zan also added entertainment to his schedule. For example, he asked Su Shaner to dance. Su Shaner was very happy. She had finally gained her master's attention again, and she was more than happy to tell Chu Zan that she could also play the zither. Therefore, Chu Zan refined a zither and taught her a sound projection technique to Su Shaner so that she could play the zither for fun. Their days were getting more and more comfortable. Ding Yu and Wang Luo spent most of their time cultivating in the pocket dimension to train and increase their strength. As long as the two of them could reach the 9th level of the Emperor realm before the Asura ancient land opened, it would be fine. They could suppress their breakthroughs to the Supreme Realm so that they could participate in the fight for the Fate Treasures. The fight for the Fate Treasures was the main event, and the rewards that would be triggered if they succeeded would be extremely generous. Both of them were children of fate, so they should have a natural advantage when it came to fighting over their region's Fate Treasure. It had been such a long time, and Chu Zan did not know how Qin Ying was doing, so he decided to find some time to visit this unnamed disciple of his. He had not visited Ren Chang, his other unnamed disciple, for some time either. He reckoned that it was about time for Ren Chang to break through to the divine realm. Chu Zan returned to his quiet and low-key life, patiently awaiting the arrival of the 10-year seclusion milestone. Every day, he would cultivate for a fixed duration, listen to music, sip tea, give his disciples some pointers on cultivation, and then find time to use the myriad heavenly mirror to connect to various places randomly. After his cultivation level reached the heaven realm, the number of times he could use the myriad heavenly mirror increased. He could now use it 5 times a day. He probably could not even use the myriad heavenly mirror without restrictions even if he reached the divine realm. Perhaps he would be able to do so once he reached the Tao realm. Chu Pingfan cultivated diligently and successfully nurtured his saber. He had officially started learning the Heaven's Fate Saber scripture, and he was getting stronger with each passing day. Chu Pingfan's daily life was very simple. He cultivated, played with the heavenly spirit cat, carved sculptures, and ate medicinal pills as snacks. The pills he ate nourished his body and contributed to the cultivation of the extreme Tao. An ordinary person would not have been able to withstand the powerful medicinal effects of these pills. However, Chu Pingfan was extremely special. He could use the pills, medicinal effects on the extreme Tao, on the saber, or on his body. Although he was only 9 years old and was only a Truth Realm cultivator, the strength of his body was no weaker than an ordinary first-level Emperor Realm cultivator. Those who cultivated the extreme Tao would not have a weak body. Otherwise, they would not be able to bear the burden and power of the extreme Tao. Chu Zan passed the Aurora technique to Chu Pingfan, as well as the same indispensable concealment technique. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to sense the cultivation of an extreme Tao cultivator. Even if Chu Pingfan could not conceal his aura, due to how special the extreme Tao was, very few cultivators would be able to sense his cultivation level. On the contrary, he would just seem like an ordinary person, with some special characteristics. Ding Yu and Wang Luo were also cultivating the Aurora technique, but they found it to be quite difficult. They were unable to get the hang of it for quite some time. However, Chu Pingfan easily mastered it. The 10-year seclusion milestone was getting closer and closer. Chu Zan was filled with anticipation. On this day, he took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Qin Ying. He discovered that Qin Ying was cultivating on that same cliff. He had already started cultivating the Tyrant Dragon Body technique. His graceful body belied his powerful strength. His arms now had some slight muscular definition. Of course, that was all it was for now. He was still far from becoming a full-fledged muscular beauty. On the contrary, his countenance and demeanor seemed to exude ambition. Qin Ying had already cultivated to the 5th level of the Emperor realm. In addition to the tyrant dragon body technique he was cultivating, Qin Ying also had combat experience and techniques from his life, as well as all kinds of powerful secret techniques from the Luo family. It would not be a problem for him to face off against an ordinary 9th level Emperor realm cultivator. However, Chu Zan chose not to meet him. What if Qin Ying asked him for a way to restore his male body? How would he reply? Deceive him? Chu Zan was afraid that he would not be able to keep himself from deceiving Qin Ying. He shut off the myriad heavenly mirrors connection and connected to Ren Chang instead. He found that the latter's body was surrounded by the aura of life and death, which were intertwined with each other, exuding a faint Tao charm. He was about to break through to the divine realm. To be more precise, Ren Chang was currently in closed-door cultivation while he broke through to the divine realm. However, the process of breaking through would take a long time. Chu Zan was worried that Ren Chang might not be able to complete his breakthrough within the next 3 to 5 years. Chu Zan did not disturb him. Instead, he turned his gaze to the Buddha Nanwu. After the origin Tao crystal was placed in the pocket dimension, it allowed the world in the pocket dimension to be connected to the great Tao. Buddha Nanwu could directly comprehend the great Tao inside the pocket dimension. At this moment, Buddha Nanwu's cultivation had already reached the 9th level of the heaven realm. Chu Zan summoned him over. He explained the Buddhist Dharma to him once again, causing Buddha Nanwu's comprehension of the Buddhist Dharma to become even deeper. Another half a month passed. The 10-year seclusion milestone was inching ever so close. Chu Zan's hard work in cultivation had brought him half a step closer to the 2nd level of the heaven realm. He estimated that, after another 100-year cultivation boost reward, he would be able to break through to the 2nd level of the heaven realm. He continued to work hard in his cultivation. After swallowing a pill, Chu Zan lay lazily on the reclining chair and cultivated. Suddenly, a system notification rang out in his mind. Your disciple, Mo Luantian, experienced an epiphany in the Buddhist Dharma, and his cultivation soared. He broke through to the Emperor realm. You have been rewarded with a Tao-seeking mirror. Chu Zan, what was going on? Mo Luantian had actually experienced an epiphany in the Buddhist Dharma and had broken through to the Emperor realm. Moreover, the system did not reward him with a cultivation boost this time. Instead of rushing to receive the reward, Chu Zan immediately took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Mo Luantian. On a barren mountain inside a dark cave, Mo Luantian, who was dressed in a white monk robe, was seated cross-legged while floating in midair. Buddhist light surrounded his body. Atop his head, a circle of Buddhist light appeared. He looked like a bodhisattva that had descended to the mortal world. He clasped his hands together and chanted Buddhist scriptures. Chu Zan was dumbfounded. It had not been too long since he last saw Mo Luantian, but it seemed that this disciple of his had changed drastically. He had really become a Buddha. Open the heavenly eye. Mo Luantian shouted in a low voice, and a gleam of light instantly bloomed between his brows. A third eye opened, making it seem as if he had seen through every illusion. Seeing this scene, Chu Zan could not help but exclaim in surprise. Mo Luantian and Buddhism were indeed fated, he had comprehended the heavenly eye. Awesome! The Buddhist light around him was dense, and his white clothes were like snow. Not a speck of dust could be seen on them. In addition, he looked holy, and definitely not like an ordinary person. However, the next scene almost made Chu Zan bite his tongue. Mo Luantian, who had just opened his heavenly eye, suddenly shouted again, Mighty Heavenly Dragon! Roar! A shadow of a dragon condensed from Buddhist light arose from behind him. Chu Zan, Chapter 146, Tao-Seeking Mirror, 10-Year Seclusion Milestone. Question mark. Chu Zan was stunned. Mighty Heavenly Dragon. He looked at the shadow of the dragon condensed from Buddhist light that had arisen behind Mo Luantian, and watched as it turned into a huge dragon that coiled itself around Mo Luantian's body. The dragon's roar was mighty and awe-inspiring. The cave collapsed and the rocks on the mountain were turned to dust. This mighty heavenly dragon divine technique was extremely powerful. However, there was something wrong with this disciple of his. Chu Zan fell into a state of deep thought. When he had deceived Mo Luantian back then, he seemed to have said a bit too much. Something about the mighty heavenly dragon, the Venerable Saitagarbha. He had even said something along the lines of, Buddhist light transforms into a heavenly dragon, forming a boundless divine technique. Buddhist Dharma is boundless. Therefore, this fellow, Mo Luontian, had memorized his words. After comprehending the Buddhist scriptures, he had actually created such a divine technique. Awesome. Chuzan could not help but sigh. This disciple of his was really awesome. He had only said a few words of deception, but his disciple had managed to link it to the Buddhist Dharma and create a divine technique. He could not help but also think of Ding Yu and Wang Luo. He had also deceived these two disciples back then. Why was it different for them? Why did they not create any powerful secret techniques? Was it because of Mo Luontian's unique talent, or was it because his deception back then was lacking? Visit myboxnovel.com to read, PLS. The Buddhist light around Mo Luontian's body converged, and the shadow of the dragon assimilated itself into his body. He put his palms together and said, Amitabha. Mo Luontian then left the desolate mountain. He walked barefoot, and a saber hung on his waist. His expression was gentle, and his eyes were clear. After breaking through to the Emperor realm, Mo Luontian had gained some confidence. He wanted to spread Buddhist Dharma and convert the demons around him. Chuzan was very pleased with this disciple, and he looked forward to the next time Mo Luontian would earn him a system reward. He then deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror and received the system reward. Using the Tao-seeking mirror, you can search for the great Tao in the Tao, and can record the Tao auras you find. Chuzan examined the small mirror in his hand. There was an illusory compass needle on it, which seemed to be condensed from the great Tao. It was actually a treasure that could search for the great Tao in the Tao. What was the Tao? Searching for the Tao probably referred to Tao realm experts. Chuzan impatiently poured in his spiritual power, as he wanted to know if there were any Tao realm experts in the 9 zones and, if there were any, where they were hiding. As the needle on the Tao-seeking mirror rotated, Chuzan felt his spiritual power crazily pour into the Tao-seeking mirror like a flood. His soul power was also drawn into the Tao-seeking mirror. After just a few minutes, Chuzan felt that he could not hold on any longer. He hurriedly cut off the spiritual power input, and the needle on the mirror stopped. In those few short minutes, he had not been able to find any traces of the existence of Tao realm experts, or anything related to the great Tao. He swallowed a medicinal pill to recover his spiritual power. There's no rush. I'll search every day to see if I can find a Tao realm expert. The Tao-seeking mirror could detect Tao realm experts and record a strand of their Tao aura. Once a Tao realm expert's Tao aura was recorded, Chuzan would be able to locate them through the Tao-seeking mirror. Furthermore, after recording the auras of these Tao realm experts, Chuzan would be able to infuse these Tao auras into the origin Tao crystal. He would then be able to use the origin Tao crystal to communicate with them. He could even secretly ask the other party to help him nurture the origin Tao crystal. Given the abilities of these two supreme treasures, the other party should not be able to detect anything amiss. If he recorded the Tao auras of 8 to 10 or Tao realm experts to nurture the origin Tao crystal, would he not be able to quickly upgrade the pocket dimension again? Would the world inside the pocket dimension be able to evolve a complete great Tao? Chuzan was extremely excited when he thought about this. Of course, the prerequisite for all of this was that he had to find these elusive Tao realm experts. Following that, Chuzan would use the Tao-seeking mirror every day in an attempt to find Tao realm experts. However, more than 10 days passed fruitlessly. Could it be that there really are no Tao realm experts in the 9 zones? Since such a realm exists, there should naturally be experts who have reached this realm. Could it be that they have all left the 9 zones? If they aren't in the 9 zones, where did they go? Could there really be a higher realm? Chuzan was very puzzled. If there was a higher realm, then why were there no legends about this? Or had he failed to find any Tao realm experts because he could not use the Tao-seeking mirror for more than a few minutes at a time? This was also a possibility. Given Chuzan's current strength, he could only search for a few minutes each day. Any longer and it would consume too much of his spiritual power. As such, given such a short search duration, finding a Tao realm expert was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Chuzan was helpless. He wanted nothing more than to uncover the secret of whether Tao realm experts existed, but could not find one. He was extremely despondent. As a result, he had no interest in listening to Su Shan'er play the zither. Su Shan'er was even more depressed. It had only been a short while. Had Master already grown tired of listening to her play this zither? Mister, can I dance for you? I'm not interested. Chuzan raised his eyelids and replied. Su Shan'er stomped her feet and squatted in front of Chu Pingfan. Little Ping Fan, can Aunt dance for you? Chu Ping Fan held the wooden saber in his hand. He shook his head and said, Aunt Sue, I don't want to watch you dance. I want to cultivate my saber. Su Shaner was very angry. As such, she entered the pocket dimension to look for Ding Yu to spar, beating him up to vent her anger. Time flew by. Almost 10 years had passed since Chu Zan had moved into this small courtyard. Whether it was because the development of the Chu family had been progressing well, or whether it was because Chu Tianming missed his precious son, Chu Chuluo, this old grandfather of his finally remembered that he had a grandson who had been thrown into the small courtyard. Hence, he got the head butler to go over and get Chu Zan to return to the ancestral residence. Go back to the ancestral residence. I'm not interested. Chu Zan shook his head and refused. He was surprised that the old man, Chu Tianming, had suddenly remembered his existence. This is an order from the family head. Could it be that 13th young master wants to disobey the family head? The head butler was surprised by Chu Zan's attitude. I'm living very happily here. I won't go back. Go back and tell him not to disturb me again. Chu Zan waved his hand and turned his back to the head butler. You, the head butler was a little angry. Go and tell him not to disturb me. Otherwise, Yuner and I will leave the Chu family with our belongings. Don't blame me for not telling you this in advance. The head butler's heart skipped a beat. If Chu Zan really did this, Chu Yun would really listen to him. He also remembered that Chu Yun had warned him not to disturb Chu Zan. He could only return to the ancestral residence helplessly. Be starred. Just let him stay there then. Chu Zan was not bothered by Chu Tianming's roars coming from the ancestral residence. This old man had not had anything to shout about in a while anyway. It was good to roar once in a while. At least he could express his emotions. Tomorrow would mark the 10-year milestone of his seclusion in the courtyard. Chu Zan was full of anticipation. What would he receive as a reward for staying put for 10 years? The 5-year period would reward the portable small world. The reward for the 10-year seclusion milestone would definitely be more valuable than a simple pocket dimension, right? In order to celebrate his 10-year seclusion milestone, he called Su Shaner out. He asked her to change into a set of clothes. He also summoned the spirit-devouring flower. Flowers bloomed all over the courtyard. They were extraordinarily gorgeous and very charming. Come, let's dance to add to the fun. Su Shaner. Why did he suddenly ask her to dance again? He even made such a big scene. Could it be that he was going to have her serve him in bed next? Thinking this, Su Shaner's pretty face turned red, and her heart pounded violently. She was nervous and expectant at the same time. As she danced, her waist twisted more and more exaggeratedly, her dance becoming more and more alluring. Chu Zan. Something was not right with this girl. Chapter 147. 10-year seclusion milestone reward, indestructible chaos body and chaos bell. Pa. Chu Zan slapped Su Shaner on the head. Ouch. Su Shaner covered her head and stopped twisting her waist. She looked at Chu Zan with an aggrieved expression. Dance properly. Don't make any movements that are inappropriate for children. Chu Zan scolded. Su Shaner pouted and twirled a few times casually. She then lost interest and jumped down. On the other hand, the spirit-devouring flower's roots spread out, and its tree trunk twisted. It stood tall amidst the glittering and beautiful flowers. It was quite the ornamental addition to the scene. Chu Zan took out a pot of tea and got Su Shaner to brew it. This was the Tao rhythm tea that the system had rewarded him with yesterday. The tea contained Tao rhythm, and every sip was equivalent to the Tao rhythm washing over one's body and soul. It could be said to be a supreme treasure. Chu Zan already had no use for the Tao enlightenment tea and the like that he had consumed in the past. He only drank Tao rhythm tea now. Every sip of tea would increase his cultivation speed. You should only drink 1 cup of this tea a month. Any more and it will do more harm than good to you, Chu Zan said as he watched Su Shaner pour him a cup of tea as usual. Tao rhythm tea was good, but her cultivation was too low. After drinking 1 cup, she would have to digest its benefits for a long time. If she drank it frequently, it would harm her. No matter how good the tea was, it had to be consumed in appropriate quantities. Understood, sir. Su Shaner took a sip of the tea. She felt her soul was cleansed and her mind gained clarity. It was as if she had unlocked some shackles that were holding her back. Things that were previously incomprehensible to her were now clear. Her eyes lit up. The tea that Sir drank was indeed extraordinary. Chu Zan called Ding Yu and Wang Luo out of the pocket dimension. They each had a cup of tea and went back to continue their cultivation. As for Buddha Nanwu, Chu Zan made him drink 3 cups. After Su Shaner finished her tea, she went back into the pocket dimension to comprehend her insights. Chu Pingfan also ran over and drank a cup of tea. He then entered the universe space, and his body was surrounded by a mysterious aura. The heavenly spirit cat, the sky-shaking golden rock, and the spirit-devouring flower also drank a cup each. After Chu Zan finished his tea, he lay lazily on the chair, waiting for the 10-year seclusion milestone reward to arrive. The 10-year seclusion milestone was finally here. You have been a shut-in for 10 years. Please continue to set new records. You have been rewarded with the indestructible chaos body and the chaos bell. The 10-year reward was a special innate constitution. Chu Zan immediately examined the description of the indestructible chaos body. The indestructible chaos body was born from the primal chaos. It is eternal and immortal. It can absorb all Taos into one's body and transcend the tribulation of the Taos. It was awesome, eternal and immortal. It could also absorb all of the Taos into one's body. This meant that he could cultivate all the great Taos. His cultivation would not clash just because the two Taos were in conflict with each other. It was worthy of being the 10-year seclusion milestone reward. Chu Zan then took a look at the second reward, the Chaos Bell. Born from the primal chaos, it is eternal and undamaged. It can swallow the great Taos. The bell's chimes can be transmitted through the ages. It has incredible defense and can help its wielder to transcend and suppress the Tao tribulation. This reward was also very awesome. It had incredible defense, and its chimes could be transmitted through the ages, transcending time and space. Chu Zan noticed that both the indestructible chaos body and the chaos bell referenced their ability to withstand and transcend the Tao tribulation. Tao tribulation, what was that? Chu Zan did not understand. Could it be similar to the boundless great tribulation in the myths and legends of my previous life? No matter what it was, the fact that both of these could withstand the Tao tribulation meant that he would be able to overcome it. With both these rewards in hand, there was naturally no need to fear the Tao tribulation. Chu Zan chose to receive the indestructible chaos body reward first. Boom, his consciousness seemed to have entered a state of chaos. It was hazy, and there was nothing around him. There was no time, no light, and no darkness. There was nothing at all. It was true chaos. Suddenly, violet spiritual power filled the air, and a brilliant light shone down. It was as if time had been born. Chu Zan could feel that his body had also been reborn at this moment. Endless chaotic spiritual power filled the surroundings, and his body started gradually growing and taking shape. He did not know how many years had passed in this state, but his body finally finished its growth. Purple spiritual power filled the air, and his body seemed untouched by time. Rumble. The state of chaos disappeared, and his consciousness returned. The moment his consciousness returned, Chu Zan sensed a huge change had taken place in his body. It was as if he had experienced an indescribable transformation. It was a transformation far greater than when he broke through to the Emperor realm, or even the Heaven realm. Chu Zan sensed that the strength of his body had reached an indescribable level. Divine weapons could not harm him, and even Tao weapons could not harm him. Time seemed to hold no sway over his physical body. Moreover, he was constantly absorbing the natural spiritual energy around him. Chu Zan's intuition told him that, at this moment, he was capable of absorbing every type of energy. Whether it was spiritual energy, demonic energy, or other kinds of sinister and poisonous energies, he could absorb all of them and use them to cultivate without any issues. This was the advantage of the indestructible chaos body. What made Chu Zan even more pleasantly surprised was that he had actually broken through to the second level of the Heaven realm. Moreover, he could clearly feel that his cultivation speed had increased by more than 100 times. Although the cultivation resources consumed also increased in tandem with this, did Chu Zan care? He did not lack cultivation resources. What he struggled with the most was cultivation speed. As long as he cultivated fast enough, he would receive no shortage of resources from the system. The speed at which his body digested the medicinal effects of pills was so fast that Chu Zan could barely believe it. According to his current cultivation speed and, with enough resources, Chu Zan estimated that he would be able to break through to the divine realm in about 3 years. This cultivation speed would terrify the entire cultivation world if news of it got out. It was likely that countless Heaven realm cultivators, who had suffered as they tried to break through to the divine realm, would directly break down and lose their minds. They would curse the great Tao for being unfair. Clenching his fist, Chu Zan felt that his strength had undergone a huge change. An ordinary second-level Heaven realm cultivator would not be able to withstand a single punch from him. This reward was too awesome. No matter how precious an item reward was, it would never be as valuable or as useful as a reward that increased one's own strength. One's own strength represented true strength. External items were only supplementary. Chuzan then took out the chaos bell. In his hand was a small, simple and unadorned bell. It did not exude a powerful aura, nor did it appear particularly domineering, contrary to its description that said it could suppress everything. It looked like a simple, ancient bell. However, this small bell was a chaos treasure that was born from primal chaos. There were only a few simple patterns on the bell. At a glance, it seemed to contain endless mysteries, yet also seemed very ordinary. It was not an exaggeration to say that if one's talent was not enough, or if one's luck was insufficient, even if the chaos bell was placed in front of them, they would not even recognize it as a treasure. Such people would end up just throwing it away. A chaos treasure could only be obtained by someone with great talent or great fortune. This bell would ring for all eternity. Chuzan wanted to try ringing the chaos bell to hear just how it would ring for all eternity. However, he discovered that with his current strength, he was not able to ring the chaos bell. On second thought, it made sense. If he could ring it so easily, it would not be worthy of being called a chaos treasure. He placed the chaos bell into his divine soul. After undergoing the transformation process of the indestructible chaos body, Chuzan discovered that his divine soul had also undergone a transformation and now had an indestructible characteristic. With the addition of the indestructible chaos body and the chaos bell, Chuzan's strength had exploded by leaps and bounds. Even a divine realm expert would not be able to kill him. Chuzan could not hold back his excitement. He entered the trial mystic realm to test his strength. His first choice was to use Buddha Nanwu to test himself. Buddha Nanwu, who had already broken through to the 9th level of the heaven realm, was so strong that he was almost at the pinnacle of the heaven realm. Chapter 148. Myriad Tao Artifact and Myriad Array Formation Scriptures. In the trial mystic realm, Chuzan fought with Buddha Nanwu for half an hour. In the end, he defeated Buddha Nanwu with his newfound strength. The fearsomeness of the indestructible chaos body was displayed during his fight. With his second-level heaven realm cultivation, he had defeated Buddha Nanwu, who was at the 9th level of the heaven realm. Chuzan was now certain that he was invincible within the heaven realm. One had to know that Buddha Nanwu cultivated Buddhist Dharma, and his Buddhist divine techniques were extremely powerful. His golden body was also extremely powerful. Among the 9th level heaven realm cultivators, Buddha Nanwu was definitely ranked among the top. Even so, he was still defeated by Chuzan even though Chuzan could not use the chaos bell yet, and had yet to use a few of his more powerful trump cards. For example, the time illusion and time plunder techniques, and so on. Within the heaven realm, he reigned supreme. Chuzan was extremely excited. Based on this, by the time he broke through to the 9th level of the heaven realm, he would be able to defeat the certain divine realm cultivators. After the trial ended, Chuzan tried to use the time illusion technique. He realized that he could now use it once without its consumption becoming a huge burden. After it was activated, the time illusion could last for 3 minutes, which was a huge improvement. 3 minutes was enough for him to win the battle. Furthermore, he did not feel an intense burden. It was just that he would consume too much energy if he tried to make it last longer than 3 minutes. All of this was because of the strength of the indestructible chaos body. He delved into his consciousness again. Time would not leave traces on the indestructible chaos body. Perhaps this was the reason why the time illusion technique would not activate before this. His physical body could not bear the burden. The 10-year seclusion milestone had passed. Next up was the next 10-year milestone. Chuzan set a small goal for himself. He had to remain steadfast and stay in the courtyard for 100 years. After all, staying here for 10 years had already granted him such rich rewards. Moreover, he had broken through from the mortal realm to the heaven realm. In that case, what kind of reward would he receive after staying here for 100 years? At that time, how strong would he be? Would he be invincible? Chuzan was filled with anticipation. He became more and more determined to stay put. Only by doing so could he become stronger. No one could disturb his peaceful and secluded lifestyle. He took out a bottle of cultivation pills and poured the whole bottle into his mouth. He was just that domineering. In the past, he would swallow one pill at a time. His cultivation speed was too slow, and it did not seem domineering at all. Now that he had the indestructible chaos body, his body was no longer constrained by its speed of digesting these pills, medicinal effects, so he could simply swallow the pills by the bottle. If there were not enough of them, the system would reward him with more. There was no need to panic at all. After swallowing a bottle of pills, the indestructible chaos body began to circulate. It quickly refined the medicinal efficacy of the pills to boost his cultivation. It did not feel like he was overdoing it at all. Half a day later, Chuzan swallowed another bottle of pills. You've been in seclusion for 10 years and 1 day. You have been rewarded with the Myriad Tao Artifact Scripture. Chuzan received the reward. The Myriad Tao Artifact Scripture was an artifact refining manual that contained many artifact refining methods, just like the Myriad Pill Scripture. No matter how talented one was, it was impossible for one to completely grasp it. Even someone like Wang Luo, who possessed natural pill meridians, was also unable to completely grasp the Myriad Pill Scripture. He had only learned a part of it. Even so, in the entire 9 zones, there was probably no one who could compare to him in the path of pill refinement. One had to know that, within the Myriad Pill Scripture, other than the various pill refinement techniques, the core of the scripture was the Tao of Alchemy. The Taos of Alchemy recorded within it were extremely numerous. To be able to grasp one would already make one an expert at the peak of the Tao of Alchemy. If one walked out of it with their own Tao of Alchemy, then they would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with many other supreme experts of the Tao of Alchemy. Chuzan suspected that the comprehension and Taos of Alchemy of all the experts of the Tao of Alchemy since time immemorial had been recorded in the Myriad Pill Scripture. It was the same with the Myriad Tao Artifact Scripture that he had just received from the system's reward. The difference was that this Tao belonged to the Tao of Artifact Refinement. Whether it was Emperor-level artifacts, heavenly artifacts, divine artifacts, or Tao artifacts, they were all nothing to him. Chuzan asked himself if there was anyone in the world who could compare to him in terms of artifact refinement. He could easily refine heavenly artifacts. However, after mastering the Myriad Tao Artifact Scripture, Chuzan realized that his previous level of artifact refinement was simply trash. Inside the Myriad Tao Artifact Scripture, other than artifact refinement techniques, there were also refinement techniques for puppets, mechanisms, talismans, and other such spiritual artifacts and tools. Chuzan took out the materials and came up with his own plan. He spent more than half a day refining 2 puppets. The puppets looked nothing like the puppets ordinary cultivators created. They wore armor and held divine artifacts in their hands. They were divine-grade puppets. Chuzan used his soul power to nurture them. He engraved a combat technique on them, allowing the puppets to gain basic spiritual sense. 2 puppets that belonged to the combat category. After the puppets gained basic spiritual sense, Chuzan threw the puppets toward the Origin Tao Crystal. The Tao aura and Tao principles that spread out from the Origin Tao Crystal would continue to nurture the puppet, allowing them to be able to cultivate to a certain extent, as well as to expend and recover their spiritual power on their own. Currently, the puppets' strength was only around the 5th level of the Heaven Realm. Chuzan wanted to nurture the Divine Realm puppets. As such, the Origin Tao Crystal was undoubtedly the best place to nurture these puppets. With the Tao aura and Tao principles washing over it constantly, these puppets would be nourished and gradually undergo a transformation. He did not need to activate them with spiritual crystals or other spiritual energy items. They could absorb spiritual energy on their own and store what they needed for combat. Moreover, their spiritual sense could be further improved, turning them into soul puppets that could cultivate on their own. Once the soul puppets were nurtured, he would have divine realm subordinates who could help him make preparations for the Asura ancient land. Chuzan sighed. He was lacking a genius disciple who could refine artifacts. A lazy shut-in like himself could not be bothered working hard on the path of artifact refinement. Refining 2 puppets was just something he did on the spur of the moment. Wang Luo was capable of refining pills, but he was lacking when it came to artifact refining. He did not know when a genius in artifact refining would come to him. You've been a shut-in for 10 years and 2 days. You've been rewarded with the Myriad Array Formation Scripture. Oh, Chuzan was startled. Yesterday, the reward was about artifact refining. Today, it was about arrays and restrictions. Could it be that the system wanted to make him an all-rounder? Did it want him to become a super awesome expert who had truly mastered the Myriad Taos? He received the Myriad Array Formation Scripture, within which were recorded countless arrays and restrictions. Like the Myriad Tao Artifact Scripture, it contained many array formations. The southern region was a barren land where array formations were scarce. Even in the wider northern zone, array formations were relatively rare, and very few people specialized in the Tao of formations. Most of them only used them to assist in cultivation. Even those who were very proficient in array formations were not specialized in them. The only difference was that they were capable of setting up array formations that were not completely auxiliary. Chu Zan summoned Su Shaner, Ding Yu, and Wang Luo and taught them the basics of array formations, as well as some common array formations and restrictions. This was especially beneficial for Wang Luo. As long as he used array formations properly when refining medicinal pills, he would find them quite useful. As Chu Zan's disciples, they did not have to be proficient in everything, but at the very least, they had to have some knowledge about each subject. Today, I'll be explaining formations and restrictions to all of you. How much you can learn and whether you're interested to learn more is all up to you. The three of them quickly sat down and listened attentively, afraid that they would miss out on something important. Chu Pingfan also walked over and sat down beside Chu Zan. The Sage Master's halo was activated, and Chu Zan began explaining the Tao of formations, as well as imparting the various formations and restrictions to them. He was only imparting some basic knowledge of array formations to them. It could be said to be the foundation of the Tao of formations, and included some of the more commonly used array formations and restrictions. For example, illusion, confinement, barrier, and attack formations were more commonly used types of array formations. He did not impart anything too profound. After all, the talents of these three disciples of his did not lie in formations. It would be enough if they could identify, set up and break common formations. Chapter 149. Shangxing, Crimson Bones. Under the blessing of the Sage Master's halo, Su Shaner and the others were all immersed in a state of comprehension. It was not difficult to grasp the basics of array formations. After the explanation was finished, everyone achieved their own level of mastery. Chu Zan passed the complete heaven-reaching sword technique to Ding Yu. He had originally wanted to wait until Ding Yu broke through to the heaven realm before teaching him the full technique, but with Ding Yu's recent achievements in sword Dao comprehension allowed him to do this in advance. It was the same for Wang Luo. Su Shaner and Ding Yu returned to the pocket dimension and tried to set up their own array formations. Wang Luo stayed behind. He had gained some new insights into how to use the array formations to help refine pills, and even how to refine array formations into pills, transforming pills into weapons that could kill enemies. Chu Zan was rather appreciative of his ideas and took the time to explain more about the use of array formations and restrictions. Wang Luo then went back into the pocket dimension to comprehend Chu Zan's teachings. Pingfan, have you gained any insights? Chu Zan looked at Chu Pingfan and asked. Chu Pingfan's talent was unique. Although he looked dull and stupid, he was not a stupid person. How could a person with the talent to cultivate the extreme Tao be stupid? I gained some insights. The saber rises and falls. The saber is my array, the array is my saber, and everything is my saber. Chu Pingfan nodded his head. Is there anything you don't understand? Chu Zan rubbed his head. A little. Talk to me about it. After Chu Zan clarified some of Chu Pingfan's doubts, the latter returned to the universe space to ponder his insights. You have been a shut-in for 10 years and 3 days. You have been rewarded with a box of heavenly mystery pills. Heavenly mystery pills were heaven realm cultivation pills. The system was generous, and had given him an entire box of the stuff. After his body underwent the transformation and turned into the indestructible chaos body, Chu Zan's consumption of the heavenly mystery pills increased. His new consumption rate was no longer calculated by the number of pills, but by the number of bottles. Su Shaner and the other two were in the pocket dimension and universe space, comprehending arrays and restrictions. They each had their own understanding of how to use them in battle. Wang Luo was refining special pills. Not only did he use spirit herbs as materials, but he also used various materials to engrave arrays into the pills. His medicinal pill was an array formation. Ding Yu used the heaven-reaching sword technique as the foundation to create his sword array formation. Su Shaner also used her own insights to create her own applications of array formations. Chu Zan was very happy. As expected of his maidservant and disciples. Their talent had indeed left him speechless, but they could not have achieved this without his own guidance. The Sage Master's halo naturally played a great role. Chu Pingfan had been practicing his saber all this time. When he pulled his saber out, it seemed as if there was a large array attached to it. Although it was not perfect, it was a good start and a foundation for future attainments. Attaching the array to the saber was only one of the offensive means that Chu Pingfan possessed. His true strength still lay in the extreme Tao killing techniques he had mastered. It was not an easy thing to fuse array formations with extreme Tao killing techniques. At the very least, the current Chu Pingfan was not capable of doing so. Another 3 months passed. Chu Zan's strength continued to increase. He would soon reach the 3rd level of the Heaven Realm. Outside Chu County, a figure was lying on a desolate mountain. The clothes on his body were tattered and torn. His entire body was charred black, emitting a scorched smell. His hair was actually emitting white smoke. Shangxing opened his eyes and examined the condition of his body. He could not help but let out a sigh. It was happening again. Every time it happened, it felt worse than death. This time, he was exploring the ruins of some ancient sect with someone. Unexpectedly, he was ambushed and almost died. Then, his strange illness also flared up. He thought he was dead for sure. He only remembered that, at the last moment, he used his treasured armor to block the fatal blow and accidentally activated an unknown ancient array formation in the ancient ruin. He then lost consciousness. He struggled to sit up. There were heavy injuries on his body, and his flesh was almost charred black. His mind and spiritual will had also suffered considerable injuries. He wanted to take out medicinal pills to treat his injuries, but discovered that he had lost his storage bag somehow somewhere. All that he had left was a small hammer that he had been nurturing in his dantian. This was an artifact that he had personally forged. A hammer was what suited him best when it came to refining weapons. However, without pills, how could he treat the injuries he had? If he did not treat it, his cultivation foundation would be damaged, and the consequences would be unimaginable. He looked around and discovered that he was on a small hill. Shangxing was startled. Why was the spiritual energy here so thin? Where exactly was he? He struggled to stand up, which worsened his injuries. At the same time, his bones suddenly emitted a scorching aura that was like fire. Shangxing's expression changed. Could it be that the strange illness was about to flare up again? Given his current condition, if the strange illness flared up now, he would definitely not be able to endure it. No, he could not just sit here and wait for death. Clenching his teeth, he staggered to his feet. The scorching heat from his bones became even stronger, as if they were being burned by fire. He could not help but let out a miserable cry. A piece of the charred flesh on his finger had peeled off, revealing his finger bones. Shangxing discovered that his finger bones were actually crimson red. It was as if there was a flame burning inside. What exactly is going on? Shangxing understood that the strange illness he had contracted was related to the crimson state of his bones. However, he did not know what kind of strange disease this was. He racked his head and searched his memories for knowledge from the ancient records, but still could not find the answer. The Shang family was not some minor family. It had a long history and was very powerful. There was even a heaven realm expert in the family. It was also an aristocratic family that specialized in refining artifacts. He was an illegitimate son and, when he became of age, his talent was tested by the family's elders. They did not know what his strange illness was either, but rumors about it spread among the family, with many calling it ominous. As a result, he had always been discriminated against. He had been ostracized and despised by his peers. He was called the Shang family's monster for as long as he could remember. Shangxing looked at the crimson finger bones and squatted down with his hands on his head. He recalled the ostracism and disdain he had been subjected to since he was young. He had suffered all kinds of humiliation, and was not liked by the family's elders either. He had not received any cultivation resources from the family. Everything he had was earned by him personally. Even among all the illegitimate children in the family, he was ranked at the bottom. The healing pills he had with him were gone. All he had left was a small hammer that he had refined himself. It was unable to solve his urgent problem. Even walking had become a problem. Shangxing realized sadly that he might not be able to survive this calamity. He would die in this unknown place. From today onward, the Shang family's monster would be gone forever. Shangxing could not help but cry. Since he was young, he had always been stubborn. He had never admitted defeat and never shed tears. This time, he cried. It was as if he wanted to vent all his despair, all his unwillingness, grief and anger before he died. As he cried bitterly, some of the charred flesh on his body continued to peel off, revealing the crimson bones underneath. They glowed like red-hot iron and emitted a scorching aura. His fleshly body seemed to be melting under the scorching aura emitted by his bones. The intense pain caused him to almost lose consciousness. This time, I'm really going to die. If he had not suffered such a serious injury, and if he still had the precious healing medicine, Shangxing would not have lost all hope. He would have been confident in his ability to survive this calamity. However, he had been left with nothing. There was no one around to help him in this desolate place. He could not even move his feet. Shang-Xing tapped his bare bones. The bones that were exposed let out a crisp sound. The grass and trees that touched the bones were instantly burned up. Chapter 150. Is he human? Shang-Xing lay on the ground as he tried his best to stay conscious and breathe, his eyes gazing at the open sky. Perhaps it would not be long before his eyes closed and his breath ceased forever. The surrounding vegetation began to burn. Flames surrounded him. He was not afraid of fire. He had never been afraid of it since he was young. The most serious injury he suffered previously was when the flesh around his entire arm and half of his chest disappeared, revealing those crimson bones. In the end, he survived. Logically speaking, he probably possessed a special talent that made him different from ordinary people. However, the strange illness that flared up from time to time caused him to constantly teeter on the edge of life and death. In terms of cultivation, he was not much stronger than an ordinary heaven's blessed. Within the Shang family, he was not considered particularly outstanding. As he felt his flesh burn, and his bones becoming hotter and hotter, his consciousness was on the verge of collapse due to the immense pain and heat. Shang-Xing tried his best to breathe and keep his eyes open. He felt that, before long, his eyes would be completely burned away. Most of his flesh had burned away, leaving behind only his crimson bones. His current situation was both fortunate and unfortunate. Despite his flesh having burned away, his consciousness was still intact. He had not collapsed, and he continued to bear the immense pain. Suddenly, he heard a woman's voice. Then, a beautiful figure appeared before Shang-Xing's eyes, accompanied by a faint scent. It seemed to be the scent that lingered on someone who often worked with spiritual herbs and refined pills. He was not unfamiliar with this scent. After all, in order to treat the strange illness in his body, he had interacted with many alchemists. The flames around him were extinguished. "Are you human?" Shang-Xing cried inwardly, "Do I not look like a human anymore?" How tragic. As Chu Yun spoke, she took out a small bottle and sprinkled the medicinal liquid that she had refined over Shang-Xing's body. As the medicinal liquid sprinkled over his body, it made sizzling sounds, like water sprinkled on red-hot iron. Chu Yun stretched out her finger and tapped Shang-Xing's bones. "Oh my, it's so hot. Hey, can you speak?" Shang-Xing opened his mouth, but was unable to speak. However, as the medicinal liquid rained down on his body, he felt a little better, and his injuries recovered slightly. However, she was still unable to save him. Shang-Xing did not harbor any wild hopes. This alchemist was just a little girl, not much older than him. How could she have the ability to save him? Chu Yun held a small knife in her hand. She used it to tap Shang-Xing's exposed bones, making crisp sounds. Her eyes turned brighter and brighter. She took out a few more pills, crushed them, and sprinkled them over Shang-Xing's body, safeguarding his life. Shang-Xing saw her take out a bag. It was clear that she was going to put him in it. He could not help but feel sad. "I found a treasure." Chu Yun was very happy. She had gained a lot from this trip. She had also found such a strange person. It should be a person, right? She used the bag to put Shang-Xing in. She then carried the bag and returned to the Chu family's territory. Shang-Xing felt the cool air swirling about in the bag. The pain he felt was alleviated, and his injuries were also under control to a certain extent. Moreover, the symptoms of his strange illness seemed to be receding. Had he survived again? Shang-Xing did not know whether he should be happy or sad, especially given the fact that he did not know what would happen to him next. What would this girl do to him? Would she treat him as a monster and study him? In the past, in order to treat the strange illness, he had also been studied by others. He had almost been dissected by someone. Fortunately, he had escaped quickly. Thinking back to that scene from before, Shang-Xing could not help but shiver. Could it be that the same thing would happen to him again? However, given his current situation, there was no way for him to escape. 13th brother, 13th brother. I've picked up a treasure. I don't know if he can be considered a human being, though. The woman's joyful voice rang in his ears, and then Shang-Xing felt himself being poured out of the bag. Bang! He fell to the ground. He shook his head and looked up. A handsome man was lazily sitting on a reclining chair, looking over at him. Chu Zan saw Chu Yun running into the courtyard excitedly with a bag. He was a little surprised. His curiosity was piqued when he saw a strange man come out of her bag. 13th brother, look, his bones are crimson, like red-hot iron. And they're very hot. Chu Yun flicked Shang-Xing's exposed bones and asked expectantly, 13th brother, do you think he's a human? Chu Pingfan came over curiously. The heavenly spirit cat also came over. The sky-shaking golden rock also came over. Then, Su Shaner and the other two also came over. Chu Yun blinked her eyes. Since when were there 3 more people in the courtyard? 13th brother, who are they? Su Shaner, my maidservant. Ding Yu, Wang Luo, my disciples. Chu Zan introduced them. This is your martial aunt. Greetings, martial aunt. Ding Yu and Wang Luo hurriedly bowed. Although this martial aunt's strength was not that great, and she was much weaker than them, she was Master's younger sister. Chu Yun blinked her eyes and directed her attention away from Shangxing, who was just laying there on the ground. 13th brother, you've already taken in disciples. Chu Zan walked over, patted her head, and said with a smile, it's normal to take in disciples. Greetings, Sister Yun, Su Shaner said with a smile. Chu Yun looked at Su Shaner, who was dressed as a servant, and muttered, you look a little familiar. After they got to know each other, everyone stared at Shangxing. All of them had surprised looks on their faces. They stretched out their hands and tapped his bare bones. The bones were actually crimson, and very hot. Ding Yu grabbed a handful of grass and placed it on the bones. The grass started to burn. What is going on? It's so unique. The bones can actually start a fire. Can he breathe fire? Wang Luo asked curiously. Shangxing had a sorrowful look on his face. He was surrounded by gawking people again. 13th brother, is he human? Chu Yun said, if he is human, let's save him. Chu Zan stared at Shangxing. The more he looked at him, the more satisfied he became. An artifact refining genius had finally come knocking. Another talented disciple was his for the taking. He is human, Chu Zan nodded. Sir, then what is going on with his situation? Is he cultivating some sort of special technique? Su Shaner asked curiously. Everyone looked at Chu Zan, waiting expectantly for the answer. Shangxing was the same. It's not a cultivation technique. Chu Zan shook his head and said, this is a special physique, and also a very powerful type of innate talent. Shangxing's lips twitched. He wanted to say something, but could not. Seeing this, Chu Yun took out a spiritual medicine with a slight expression of unwillingness. This was something she had refined with great difficulty. She crushed it and sprinkled it over Shangxing's mouth. After some time, Shangxing felt that he could speak. He was so excited that he was about to cry. Thank you for saving my life, miss. He looked at Chu Zan again, with anticipation, and then said nervously, Senior, I really have a special physique and innate talent. Why doesn't it feel that way? Instead, it tortures me incessantly. Some special talents, because they are rare and unique, cannot be fully manifested without the corresponding cultivation technique or activation method. Instead, they will manifest to the common cultivator as trash. Chu Zan sat back in his chair and said, you were born with fiery bones, a very special physique. Chapter 151, The Great Sun-Burning Sky Technique. Fiery bones. Everyone was stunned. They had never heard of such a unique physique. Shangxing was also stunned. He had searched through all of the ancient records he could find, and had asked around everywhere, but had still failed to find an answer. In Chu Zan's eyes, Shangxing's origins were as clear as day. Nothing could hide from the Heavenly Secret's origin-probing technique. Shangxing, the illegitimate son of the Shang family of the eastern region of the southern zone. Because his mother consumed the Tao fruit of fire, his bloodline changed, and he was born with fiery bones. He mistakenly entered an ancient zone crossing formation and ended up in the southern region of the northern zone. The illegitimate son of a large family was born with the fiery bones physique, and he was the son of fate of the eastern region of the southern zone. Moreover, his mother was probably not an ordinary person. After she consumed the Tao fruit of fire, Shangxing's bloodline had undergone a transformation, thus giving rise to his fiery bones physique. The Tao fruit was a treasure that contained the essence of the Tao, and even a trace of the Tao. How could someone who could eat the Tao fruit be an ordinary person? Based on the information the Heavenly Secret's origin-probing technique gave him, Shangxing's mother did not die, nor was she in the Shang family. She had disappeared after leaving Shangxing behind. It was likely that there was some sort of karma hidden behind this whole situation. Chu Zan did not care about what kind of secrets were hidden behind the scenes. When Shangxing grew stronger, he would deal with them himself. As long as he was Chu Zan's disciple, he would not be bullied. It was just a Tao fruit, after all. It would not be long before he would have one, and then many more. He looked at Shangxing and asked, are you willing to take me as your master? Shang-Xing was stunned for a moment, after which he became overjoyed. If this expert had managed to identify his physique and special illness from a single glance, and was willing to take him in as his disciple, it meant that he naturally had a way to resolve the flare-ups related to the fiery bones physique. He was so excited that he was about to cry. I'm willing, I'm willing. Su Xian, and the other two were not surprised by this. When Chu Zan mentioned that Shang-Xing was born with the fiery bones physique, they had already guessed that he was going to take in another disciple. Ding Yu was born with the Heaven's Will Sword Pulse, Wang Luo was born with the innate Pill Meridians, and Su Shana herself was also born with the Grand Moon Mystic Body. All of them possessed very special talents. Shang-Xing's fiery bones physique was also considered a special talent. Chu Zan waved his hand, and his spiritual power wrapped itself around the precious medicine, causing it to wrap around Shang-Xing's physical body. Not long after that, Shang-Xing's physical body recovered. Chu Zan's spiritual power then formed clothes around Shang-Xing's body. After all, if he had left him like that, Shang-Xing would be completely naked and exposed. Chu Yun widened her beautiful eyes and stared at Chu Zan curiously. She had been trying to figure out just how strong Chu Zan was. She even felt that he might be the true inheritor of the Chu family's heritage. 13th brother, how strong are you? Chu Yun held onto Chu Zan's arm and asked curiously while blinking her eyes. Chu Zan laughed as he patted her head. I'm just a little stronger than you. Just a little, I have to keep a low profile. Keep a low profile. Chu Yun rolled her eyes at him. I know, 13th brother wants to keep a low profile. Shang-Xing plopped to the ground and kowtowed thrice. Disciple Shang-Xing greets master. Thump, 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 get up. Chu Zan was elated. There was finally someone who could take over the task of refining artifacts from him. The communication talismans could finally be refined too. The Black Moon Tower plan could be further developed. You have accepted a disciple with the fiery bones physique. You have been rewarded with the Great Sun Burning Sky scripture. Chu Zan received the reward. This cultivation technique was just right for Shang-Xing. It could perfectly unleash his talent. This is your eldest senior brother and second senior brother. Chu Zan introduced them. Shang-Xing greeted them one by one. After meeting his senior brother, Shang-Xing thanked Chu Yun. Shang-Xing thanks you for saving my life, and for the gift of rebirth. Dong, dong, dong. If Chu Yun had not saved him and brought him here, he would be dead by now, so calling it the gift of rebirth was not an exaggeration. Chu Yun waved her hand embarrassedly, you're welcome. I was just curious and wanted to pick up a treasure. She asked Ding Yu and Wang Luo to bring Shang-Xing along to change clothes and to familiarize himself with the environment. Chu Yun hugged the heavenly spirit cat and rubbed Chu Pingfan's little head. She chatted happily with Su Shaner and they found many common topics to talk about. After staying in the courtyard for a day, Chu Yun went out to train. Greetings, master. After familiarizing himself with Ding Yu, Wang Luo, and the others for a few days, Shang-Xing came up to Chu Zan and bowed respectfully. I don't have many rules. Your senior brothers told you all about them, didn't they? Chu Zan was very satisfied with this disciple of his. In the future, he could hand over any refining tasks to this disciple. For example, the refinement of soul puppets and the like. Although he was only at the 9th level of the Void Realm right now, given the time flow difference in the pocket dimension, Shang-Xing's cultivation would be able to rise very quickly. Shang-Xing's talent was excellent, especially in terms of the Tao of artifact refinement. The myriad Tao artifact scripture could finally be put to good use. I know, eldest senior brother has already told me what the first rule of entering the sect is. It is to have no woman in your heart. Shang-Xing nodded. Ding Yu, this B** starred. Chu Zan's face was dark. Damn it, he had just taken in this disciple, and had not even deceived him, yet somehow he was led astray by Ding Yu first. It was all his fault, so he endured it. Chu Zan did not correct him, but said, you just need to remember to not be a simp. Yes, master. Shang-Xing could roughly understand what it meant to be a simp. I already know your origins. You have great karma, and that is something you will have to resolve after you become stronger. You were born with the fiery bones physique, and you come from an artifact refining aristocratic family. You have extraordinary talent in the path of artifact refinement. Shang-Xing's heart was shaken. His master knew everything. This was a truly peerless expert. He must have peered into the secrets of heaven and earth and calculated his origins. At the same time, he was puzzled. What great karma did he have? You were born with the fiery bones physique. It is a very special innate talent. If you want to subdue it and activate the potential of the physique, you must burn yourself, burn your heart, and burn your will. Only in this way can you burn the sky. After Chu Zan finished speaking, he raised his hand and pointed, passing on the great sun-burning sky technique to Shang-Sheng. I will pass on the great sun-burning sky technique to you. You should cultivate it well. After you subdue the fiery bones physique and activate its potential, I will pass on the Tao of artifact refinement to you. Thank you, Master. Shang-Sheng examined the cultivation technique in his mind and was deeply shocked. What level of cultivation technique was this? It pointed straight to the great Tao. Thump, thump, thump. He kowtowed 3 times respectfully. He raised his head and asked, Master, what great karma do I have? When the time comes for you to know, you will naturally know. At this moment, there is no need for you to know. Just cultivate well. Chu Zan continued, you only need to remember that with me as your backing, you don't need to worry about karma. Yes, thank you, Master. Shang-Sheng was extremely touched. Again, dong, 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 he kowtowed 3 times. Chu Zan was gratified. This child was very polite and respectful to his master. Go, if you need any cultivation pills, just look for your second senior brother. Yes, your disciple will take his leave. Shang-Sheng bowed and retreated before entering the pocket dimension to cultivate. The first step he had to take was to subdue the fiery bones physique and stimulate its potential. With the great sun-burning sky technique, Shang-Sheng was not worried about achieving this. He had been suffering from its flare-ups since he was young, which had resulted in his extraordinarily strong will. It was something that he had gained after undergoing countless torments and sufferings. Chu Zan felt that in terms of determination alone, Ding Yu and Wang Luo were lacking compared to Shang-Sheng. Chapter 152, Mo Luantian, Helping Others Transcend. 3 days later, Shang-Sheng subjugated the fiery bones physique and activated its potential. Chu Zan then passed part of the refining knowledge of the myriad Tao artifact scripture to him, as well as the secret techniques that he had passed on to his other disciples. For example, the immovable mountain technique, the 100 tempering divine technique, the concealment technique, and so on. After he had taught him everything, he gave Shang-Sheng a task, which was to forge a parent-child communication talisman. For this task, he would have to use the knowledge he had learned from the myriad Tao artifact scripture to improve it. This could be considered as a test for him. The little hammer that you have nurtured can be considered to have some growth value, but it will take a long time for it to transform, Chu Zan said. Shang-Xing's heart was once again shaken. His master actually knew about the little hammer that he was nurturing in his body. On second thought, he felt that it was only natural. How could his master not know? What kind of existence was he? He took out the little hammer. It was a fist-sized, round little hammer, carved with some patterns. Please give me some guidance, master. Looking at the little hammer, Chu Zan could not help but sigh. Shang-Sheng was indeed worthy of being the son of fate of the southern zone's eastern region. He was young, and his cultivation level was not high, yet he was still somehow able to obtain such a treasure. The small hammer was refined by Shang-Sheng himself, and the core materials were imbued into it by him using various materials. That small hammer was a special treasure. It could be used to refine Tao artifacts and strengthen other artifacts. Even a divine realm expert would covet such a treasure. Visit myboxnovel.com to read, PLS. Of course, the small hammer had yet to be fully nurtured, and Shang-Sheng did not have the ability to refine Tao artifacts. Thus, up until now, this little hammer was only a low-grade emperor-level weapon at best. This little hammer of yours has the beginnings of a Tao weapon in its core. However, transforming and nurturing it will take time. The structure of the hammer that you refined for it was too rough. Chu Zan raised his hand and made a beckoning gesture. The little hammer fell into his hand. With a slight shake, the little hammer shattered, revealing the little stone at its core. With another wave of his hand, a ball of golden liquid appeared in his hand, wrapping the small stone within it. It then underwent a brief period of transformation. Not long after, the little hammer reappeared. The material used was of a higher level, and it had transformed from an emperor-level weapon into a heavenly weapon. Shang-Sheng was shocked. It seemed so simple. Master had refined it with a wave of his hand. And it was now a heavenly weapon. As expected of his master. He threw the little hammer back to Shang-Sheng and said, nurture it well. Your master has accelerated its transformation process for you. Thank you, master. Shang-Sheng was extremely excited. He waved his hand and instructed Shang-Sheng to cultivate on his own. Chu Zan then took out the Tao-seeking mirror and poured in his spiritual power again. Ever since he had obtained the indestructible chaos body, the duration that Chu Zan could use the Tao-seeking mirror had increased. Even so, he still could not find any Tao-level existences. He wondered if there were actually any Tao-level existences in the 9 zones. Had they left the 9 zones, or had they hidden themselves so deeply that they could not be found within a short period of time? Shang Xing's arrival had allowed Chu Zan to start implementing the plans he had for the Black Moon Tower. However, he was not in a hurry. Bao Hongyan had already reached the 9th level of the Truth Realm. Chu Zan had begun to nurture her in preparation to take full control of the Black Moon Tower in the southern region. As such, she had taken over the authority of its operation in the southern region. Chu Zan had also provided some help for Bao Hongyan to prepare to break through to the Emperor realm. The parent-child communication talisman had not yet been released for the time being. He had a big plan. The key prerequisite for this plan was that Shang Xing's cultivation had to break through to the Emperor realm. He would only be able to implement the plan when he was capable of refining higher-level communication talismans. As long as this plan was carried out successfully, any force that used the communication talisman would be monitored by him. Ever since he obtained the Tao-seeking mirror, Chu Zan had been searching for Tao realm experts every day. However, he had yet to find any. Over time, he paid less attention to it. He only continued to search once a day as usual. Another 3 months passed. Shang Xing had already broken through from the 9th level of the Void Realm to the Truth Realm. He would soon reach the Emperor Realm. Chu Zan had finally broken through to the 3rd level of the Heaven Realm. His strength had doubled again. He could now defeat the Buddha Nanwu in 1 or 2 minutes. If he activated a trump card from the get-go, he could almost defeat him in an instant. As usual, he poured a bottle of pills into his mouth and began a new day of cultivation. Suddenly, a system notification rang out in his mind. Your disciple, Mo Luantian, has spread the idea of equality among all living beings. To save a demonic beast, slaughter 1,000 demons. You have been rewarded with the demonic scripture. Chu Zan. Something was wrong. What was wrong with Mo Luantian? Why was he not acting like a proper monk? He spread the concept of equality among all living things, and then killed 1,000 demons just to save a demonic beast. Chu Zan took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Mo Luantian. Outside a small city, corpses littered the ground, and the stench of blood filled the air. Amidst the corpses stood a bald man. His white robes were spotless. He had delicate features, clear eyes, and wore an expression of pity. He held a saber in one hand, and a small black beast in the other. At the city gate, the city lord clutched a large axe in his hand, and his entire body trembled. His face was pale as he looked at the Mo Luantian, and he cried out in fear, You are a demon, don't come over. Chu Zan, damn it, the demon race actually called Mo Luantian a demon. Who was the real demon here? The small black beast in Mo Luantian's hand looked like a lion. It was trembling, and its eyes were filled with fear as it looked at Mo Luantian. Mo Chaoshan hung the saber back on his waist and lowered his head, saying, Amitabha. Benefactor, put down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha. You should also put it down. You can't kill me. The city lord said while trembling. Good, this penniless monk is merciful, after all. How could I kill? Mo Luantian smiled kindly, his expression full of compassion. The city lord's heart almost collapsed. How could you be merciful and not kill? Were my guards killed by dogs? This Baldy was a demon. He was crazy. All he did was catch a small demonic beast to roast for dinner. Then this guy ran over and said that all living things were equal, that the lives of demonic beasts were also lives, and that they should not kill living beings. After just a few words, he killed all his guards and saved the demonic beast. He even said that he was merciful and did not kill living things. He slowly placed the axe in his hand on the ground and said, I've put down my weapon. Can I leave now? Amitabha, benefactor, this penniless monk sees that you've committed the grave sin of killing. Would you grant this penniless monk the honor of helping you transcend? As long as you don't kill me, anything is fine. The city lord wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. This Baldy was too powerful. Moreover, his power was very strange. He could actually purify his demonic power, which rendered him completely powerless to resist. Transcending wasn't important. As long as he didn't get killed, it would be fine. This penniless monk will only help you transcend, not kill you. That's good. You can help me transcend, then. The corner of Chu Zan's mouth twitched. This fellow from the demon race did not know the meaning of transcending. He was actually willing to transcend. This fellow Moluantian was too damn demonic. As expected of one of the sons of fate of the demon zone. Even though he had become a Buddhist, he was still so demonic. Besides, how did he deviate from the Dharma? Why was it all so wrong? Chapter 153. Nothing left after transcending. Amitabha, almsgiver, you know that you have committed a grave sin and are willing to put down your butcher's knife and transcend. Your merit will be boundless. Moluantian placed the small demonic beast on the ground and pressed his palms together. Pa! He then struck out with his palm. Vast Buddhist power surged and instantly destroyed the city lord's body. Only the city lord's stunned soul remained. Baldy, didn't you say that you wouldn't kill me? The city lord roared in fear and anger. His soul was about to escape when an alms bowl enveloped his soul and sucked it in. Benefactor, when did this penniless monk kill you? Destroying your sinful body allows you to transcend. Just wait for this penniless monk to purify your soul and convert you to Buddhism. If the city lord's soul could vomit blood, it would definitely vomit 3 liters of blood at this moment. This was the so-called transcending. At %, the city lord's soul cursed loudly in the alms bowl and rampaged around, trying to escape. Moluantian ignored the city lord's curses and arrived at a small hill. He sat cross-legged and placed the alms bowl on the ground. Visit myb0x-novel.com to read, PLS. The small demonic beast trembled as it leaned against his leg. Although the Baldy had saved it, it was extremely afraid. It felt that this Baldy was very terrifying. Moluantian put his palms together and looked at the alms bowl. Benefactor, this penniless monk will help you transcend and purify your sins. After saying this, he started reciting Buddhist scriptures in front of the alms bowl. Ah! The city lord's soul cried out. If the soul had ears, he would have covered them with his hands and rolled around in the alms bowl. Baldy, just kill me. Kill me now. I don't want to transcend. It was too terrifying, too unbearable, and too painful. No, benefactor, you have to sincerely reflect on yourself. After your sins are purified, you can convert to Buddhism. Moluantian continued chanting. Ah! The city lord's soul's miserable howls could be heard from inside the alms bowl. Choose on. This was Moluantian's way of transcending. It was too direct and brutal. It was over. This guy had gone astray. He could no longer be a proper monk. Sigh. Choose on sighed. When Moluantian created the mighty heavenly dragon technique, he had a feeling that this disciple of his was going to deviate from the proper path. As expected, he was right. Chuzan did not know what the latter had comprehended from the Buddhist scriptures. The city lord had fallen. His soul melted, and he died in an unwilling manner. Looking at the empty alms bowl, Moluantian lowered his gaze and chanted the name of Buddha, Amitabha. Benefactor, your sins were too grave. This penniless monk has purified all of your sins, but you were also purified with them. You are not fated with Buddhism. He sighed deeply, his voice full of compassion. He looked at the little demonic beast. The little demonic beast's body trembled, and it hurriedly stuck out its tongue to lick Moluantian's leg, trying to indicate that it had fate with Buddhism and was willing to convert. It was too terrifying. If it were to transcend, it would lose its little life. Moluantian smiled. Good, good, good. You can be this penniless monk's mount. The little demonic beast nodded frantically. Being a mount was fine. It just did not want to transcend. Chuzan was speechless. Moreover, he noticed that Moluantian was already at the second level of the Emperor realm. The latter did not cultivate in the pocket dimension, nor did he enter an ancient ruin with a time flow difference, so this kind of cultivation speed was extremely shocking. He deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror and did not continue to pay attention to Moluantian. He received the system reward. The demonic scripture was just like the Buddhist scripture, except for demons. Chuzan was speechless. He was already prepared to convert the demon race to Buddhism. Did the system now want him to create demons? Forget it. When he met a suitable disciple, he would teach him the demonic scripture. It might also be possible to establish a great demonic sect. Seeing the changes that Moluantian had undergone, Chuzan could not help but ponder. They were all children of fate, so why did Ding Yu and Wang Luo not undergo such huge changes? Of course, the two of them were extremely talented, and their cultivation speed was not slow. However, compared to Moluantian, they were much weaker. Perhaps, children of fate had to be raised in the outside world and not locked up at home. He could become stronger if he stayed at home, but it seemed that, for children of fate, staying at home might not be the best method of cultivation. Even if they had the trial mystic realm and pocket dimension to rely on. As children of fate, they inherited the fate of their region. They had to go on adventures and face challenges to obtain the chances and opportunities brought about by their fate. After Chu Zan figured it out, he decided to let Ding Yu and Wang Luo go out on adventures. Ding Yu was the son of fate of the southern region. Perhaps the southern region had a great opportunity waiting for him somewhere. The southern region also needed his presence to catalyze some changes. Wang Luo hailed from the northern region. Moreover, he was expelled from his family. It was time for him to go back and get back his dues. A child of fate who did not know how to act pretentious was not a qualified child of fate. Moreover, Ding Yu and Wang Luo would have a better chance of triggering the system's reward for him if they went out on adventures. Presently, Ding Yu's cultivation was at the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. Apart from Du Yuan, who was hiding somewhere in the southern region, no one here was his match. Wang Luo was at the peak of the 2nd level of the Emperor realm, and was about to break through to the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. His strength was no longer weak. He was strong enough to go back to the northern region and show off. A child of fate would not die in their own territory. Moreover, Chu Zan would also give them some defensive trump cards. That way, they would not even need to fear Heaven Realm experts. As for Su Shaner, well, that could wait for another day. He still needed this little maidservant to serve him. Moreover, she was not the daughter of the fate of the central region. As for the matter of Su Shaner going back to suppress her enemies and take revenge for being forced into the marriage engagement back then, there was no hurry. How many years had it been since she fled the central region? After thinking this through, Chu Zan called Ding Yu and Wang Luo over. Master, the two of you have cultivated peacefully up till now. While you might not be invincible in the same realm, you are without a doubt among the strongest. If you stay in the pocket dimension all the time, even if you enter the trial mystic realm from time to time, it will not be enough. It's time for you to go out and explore. As Chu Zan spoke, he looked at Wang Luo and said, I know what you've been through, and I also know that you want to go back and suppress your enemies to vent the anger in your heart. You can do so now. Wang Luo's eyes were red. He had been thinking about this ever since he broke through to the Emperor realm. With his strength and talent, especially now that he had reached the Emperor realm, he could already refine heavenly pills. In the entire northern region, who could compare to him when it came to alchemy? Master, I will definitely bring glory to the sect. Wang Luo kneeled on the ground and kowtowed 3 times respectfully. Although you have great luck and can turn misfortune into luck, as you are my disciple, I will naturally give you some means of protection. Chu Zan waved his hand, and a stream of his spiritual power manifested. It formed a human figure, and its appearance could not be seen clearly. It directly merged itself into Wang Luo's body. This is a stream of my power that I have given you. Below the divine realm, it will ensure your safety. However, you must not become arrogant because of this and lose your respect for the strong. Do you understand? I understand. I will heed your teachings. Wang Luo said respectfully. His master only gave him this stream of power that was invincible below the divine realm so that he would retain his respect for the strong in his heart. At the same time, he would not act recklessly just because he had this stream of power. His master had really put in a lot of effort. There is a limit to the number of times this power can be used. I hope you can understand my intentions. As Chu Zan spoke, he waved his hand again and sent a mark into his soul. It was the mark of the soul-chasing bow. If you need to, you can transmit this mark onto the enemy or restriction. No matter how far away you are, I will destroy the enemy or the restriction, even if it's in a secret realm or ancient ruin. Wang Luo kowtowed 3 times respectfully again. Chapter 154, Heavenly Tao Talisman Plan. Chu Zan had given Wang Luo protective measures, especially the mark that had been inserted into his soul. Even if his physical body was destroyed, he could still use various techniques to save his soul. When you return to the northern region, you can seek out the Black Moon Tower. Yes, Master. Wang Luo stood up and stood to the side. Chu Zan looked at Ding Yu. He was an expelled disciple of 9 Swords Mountain, but when the Bai Sheng Mountain ruin opened, he had already taken revenge and returned. Moreover, Ding Yu was trying his best to break through the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword. He was trying his best to reach the realm where he had no woman in his heart, and could draw his sword to kill gods. As for that childhood sweetheart of his, he had long forgotten about her. He no longer harbored any resentment for her, nor did he want to seek her out to take revenge. Therefore, he did not have the intention to go to 9 Swords Mountain to show off. However, he still had to obtain the experience that he should have. The southern region was in its recovery stage, so there had to be many opportunities hidden there. Perhaps they were all prepared for him, the son of the fate of the southern region. He also gave Ding Yu some instructions and let him go on his own to gain experience. He lied to him and said that if he wanted to break through the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword, he could not do so simply through secluded cultivation. He had to go on his own adventure and gain experience. On the same day, Ding Yu and Wang Luo, this pair of disciples, left the small courtyard and went on their own adventures. As for when they would return, Chu Zan's instruction to Wang Luo was to return before the Asura ancient land opened. Ding Yu was fine. He would explore the southern region, so Chu Zan left it up to him as to when he returned to the small courtyard. Sir, Su Shaner looked at him pitifully. She also wanted to return to the central region to suppress her enemies and destroy the scoundrel who had once tried to covet her. She wanted to take revenge for the forced marriage engagement and teach the Su family a lesson so that her scoundrel father would regret it. Who will serve me if you leave? Chu Zan said unhappily. Why are you in such a hurry over such a trivial matter? What strength do you possess? When you reach the heaven realm, you can go back and deal with it. It won't take long. As the origin Tao crystal was connected to the great Tao, the Tao aura pervaded the world in the pocket dimension and spread out. The cultivation speed in the pocket dimension would only get faster and faster. The 10,000-year heaven realm was the benchmark for a top-notch heavens blessed under normal circumstances. Only under abnormal circumstances would one's performance exceed this benchmark. For Su Shaner, it was not impossible for her to reach the heaven realm in 100 years. One had to know that the time flow difference between the pocket dimension and the outside world was very big. All right, Su Shaner thought about it and agreed. What was there to be anxious about? The heaven realm was not out of her reach. Chu Pingfan's eyes were filled with yearning. He started working even harder in his cultivation. As long as he became stronger, he would be able to go to the eastern continent to look for his parents. He wanted to seek justice for himself and them. He was not trash. He was not trash. The 2 children of fate had been sent out. Chu Zan would now have to wait and see what rewards they would bring him. Shang Xing's strength continued to increase, especially in terms of his ability to refine artifacts. He had made huge improvements. Chu Zan then passed him the knowledge about array formations and restrictions. It had to be known that some artifacts and secret treasures were inseparable from array formations and restrictions. As Shang Xing was now able to refine higher-level artifacts, Chu Zan also made preparations to implement his plan. He personally refined a Tao artifact. As the primary parent communication talisman, all information had to pass through it, and it could record all the information that passed through it. If he wanted to obtain confidential information, he could do so by directly checking the parent communication talisman. Moreover, Chu Zan planned to connect the parent talisman to the Great Tao through the origin Tao crystal. This way, it would be able to transmit and process a huge amount of information. This was not easy. The talisman had to at least be a Tao artifact. Moreover, it could not be an ordinary Tao artifact either. In order for it to be strong enough and immune to damage, Chu Zan cut off an ordinary piece of wood and used it as the core foundation material of the Tao artifact. Chu Zan named this Tao artifact the Heavenly Tao Talisman. It was the parent talisman of all communication talismans and controlled everything. In order to refine the Heavenly Tao Talisman, Chu Zan had put in a lot of effort. Shang Xing watched from the side, occasionally helping out. He was very shocked by his master's capabilities. Even refining a Tao artifact seemed so easy. Moreover, it was not an ordinary Tao artifact. His master was too powerful. Chu Zan spent half a month before finally completing the refining of the Heavenly Tao Talisman. Although it was called a talisman, it was actually a diamond-shaped crystal with 99 sides. It was the size of a human head and emitted a bright light. After the Heavenly Tao Talisman was completed, there were still a few other secondary master talismans that needed to be refined. Chu Zan spent 3 more days to complete the refinement. He then connected the Heavenly Tao Talisman to the origin Tao crystal. Through its connection with the origin Tao crystal, it would be able to absorb Tao aura and the overflowing Tao principles. As for the remaining communication talismans, Chu Zan left them to Shang Xing to refine and research. As long as the communication talismans were spread out and widely distributed, the plan would be successful. No matter which faction or organization used the communication talismans, Chu Zan would have full access to their secrets and information. Even if the method of refining the communication talismans was given out, it would have to connect to the Heavenly Tao Talisman in order to transmit and receive information. The current Heavenly Tao Talisman could only be considered to be in its initial stages. As Chuzan's strength increased, especially after he broke through to the Tao realm, the Heavenly Tao Talisman would be strengthened once again. It would truly be able to spread throughout the entire 9 zones, just like the Heavenly Tao. Chuzan did not tell anyone about this huge plan. Even Shangxing only had a slight inkling of what it entailed, but not the full picture. There was no way to know how crazy Chuzan's plan was. The first step of implementing the plan would naturally start from the Black Moon Tower. Furthermore, they would rely on the Black Moon Tower to pass on the communication talismans to the various factions. When all of the major factions in the northern zone had communication talismans, Chuzan would know if there was any movement in the entire northern zone. After handing over the task of refining the communication talisman to Shangxing, Chuzan finally had some free time. This was the first time that he had personally made a move and spent such a long time creating an item. You are calmly preparing a major plan. You did not leave seclusion, but started to implement the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan. You have been rewarded with Tao intent. This was a pleasant surprise. He had actually triggered the system's reward. Chuzan was overjoyed. As expected, it was always easier to trigger the system's reward inadvertently. Moreover, the reward was not a simple one. He received the reward. In an instant, Chuzan felt a mysterious concept envelope his divine soul. His entire being was immersed in a mysterious state of comprehension. His divine soul felt miraculously close to the Tao. His cultivation actually increased rapidly at this moment. When Chuzan woke up from his state of comprehension, his cultivation had broken through to the 4th level of the heaven realm. Moreover, Chuzan was pleasantly surprised to find that he could actually clearly sense the existence of the great Tao. Moreover, he could also sense a faint Tao charm that nourished his body. His soul emitted a strong Tao intent. It was as if his soul was part of the great Tao itself. His cultivation speed increased once again, and the time needed for him to break through to the divine realm was shortened once again. Shangxing was refining communication talismans, and categorizing the levels and types of the communication talismans, which included the low-level communication talisman, the high-level communication talisman, and the one-time communication talisman. The one-time communication talisman was classified as a secret type, and was prepared for people with special requirements. Chuzan kept nodding his head as he watched. Shangxing was indeed very talented and thoughtful. He had also made the necessary preparations for selling the method of making communication talismans. Shangxing could be trained to become the person in charge of carrying out the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan. The plan was progressing steadily. Chuzan was looking forward to the day when the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan was completed. It was time for him to reel in those who truly controlled the Black Moon Tower, and completely control this super powerful Northern Zone faction. Chapter 155. Ding Yu was an existence that was destined to live alone. The true controller of the Black Moon Tower was definitely a Heaven Realm expert, and a peak existence among Heaven Realm cultivators. In order to play it safe, Chuzan would not immediately lure the other party out. If he wanted to control the Black Moon Tower, he would need to do so gradually, and in secret. Once a big battle occurred, it would be very easy for information to leak. Therefore, before breaking through to the Divine Realm, Chuzan would not fish the mastermind out. At the moment, it would be enough for him if he could control the forces of the Black Moon Tower in the southern region. Chuzan took out the Heaven Spying Mirror to see what Ding Yu was doing. Before Ding Yu and Wang Luo left, Chuzan had implanted the mark of the Heaven Spying Mirror on their bodies so that he could observe their situation at any time. The image projection gradually appeared in front of him. Ding Yu was on a mountaintop. Colorful flowers were scattered all over the mountaintop, making the whole place seem like a flower garden. A beautiful figure stood in front of Ding Yu. Han Yingmeng. Ding Yu went to the floating flower pavilion's territory. What are you doing at my floating flower pavilion? Han Yingmeng looked at Ding Yu curiously and asked. Ding Yu looked at Han Yingmeng, who had a beautiful smile, beautiful face, and graceful figure, and said in a low voice, "Can I ask you for a favor?" Han Yingmeng's eyes lit up. Ding Yu had actually come to ask for her help. This was a good thing. As long as I can do it, I will definitely help. Ding Yu was too talented. In the entire southern region, no one could compare to him. The fight at Baisheng Mountain's ruin had given everyone a strong impression of him. He had crushed Nine Swords Mountain, killing a half-step Emperor Realm expert, and even escaped the hands of the young sect master of Baisheng Mountain. Of course, he had only chosen to escape because his cultivation was slightly lower than the person in question. If both sides had the same cultivation level, Ding Yu would have emerged victorious. He was a genius that everyone wanted to be on good terms with. Try hanging on to me, Ding Yu said seriously. Han Yingmeng. Hang on you, are you trying to defile me? Han Yingmeng was so angry that her face turned beet red. She took a few deep breaths and said, hang on to you. How? You're not willing to help. Ding Yu looked at her flushed face. There seemed to be anger in his eyes as he frowned and said. If you're not willing, then forget it. I'll find someone else. Han Yingmeng, I'm willing to help. Han Yingmeng gritted her teeth and agreed. Was it not just hanging onto his body? In the entire southern region, besides Ding Yu, who else was worthy of her hanging herself on his body? Since you're willing, then come. Ding Yu stood up straight and said with a solemn expression. Han Yingmeng noticed Ding Yu's solemn expression and was curious. Why did he want her to hang herself on his body? Was he not up to no good? She gathered her thoughts and walked forward. She stretched out a pair of jade-like arms and hooked them around Ding Yu's neck. Her pretty face could not help but redden. Secretly, he gritted his teeth. A pair of slender jade-like legs directly coiled themselves around Ding Yu's waist, and her entire body hung on him. Ding Yu felt her soft and delicate body hugging him, and his mind could not help but sway. He muttered in a low voice, with a woman on my body, can I still say that there's no woman in my heart? Master, I'm still too weak. I can't do it. I still need to continue working hard to break through the 3 stages of the way of the sword. Han Yingmeng. Chu Zan was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Ding Yu, this fellow, was hopeless. He thought that he had been enlightened, but in the end, had it all been for naught? FCK, I've taught you so many things and deceived you so many times, yet the only thing you remember is this one sentence. The purpose of doing this was to test whether he had achieved the realm of not having a woman in his heart despite having a woman on his body. This B***** was destined to live alone. Chu Zan was mentally exhausted. In order to prevent Ding Yu from becoming a simp, he had deceived him. However, it seemed like he had gone too far. Ding Yu's expression was extremely grave. He raised his hand and grabbed Han Yingmeng by the collar, directly pulling her up and throwing her to the side. I will definitely break through the 3 stages of the way of the sword. Ding Yu's gaze was resolute. His body turned into a sword light and soared into the sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Ah! Han Yingmeng was furious. Her aura exploded and all the flowers on the mountain were turned into dust. Ding Yu, you B*****, lecher. I, Han Yingmeng, am not done with you. How infuriating, how hateful. Chu Zan was speechless. Ding Yu was an existence that was destined to live alone. There was no hope for him. He deactivated to Heaven Spying Mirror and connected to the mark on Wang Luo's body. Wang Luo had already left the southern region. He had returned to the northern region. Chu Zan saw Wang Luo wearing a mask. He remained very low-key and his cultivation had been suppressed to the truth realm. He was actually participating in the northern region's Pildao competition for young talents. This Pildao competition was organized by several major forces in the northern region. It was one of the biggest events in the northern region. The Wang family, as one of the northern region's Pildao aristocratic families, had a long history and was very powerful. They were one of the organizers. The elites of the Wang family were also participating in this competition. Every time the Pildao competition was held, the Wang family would almost always have someone in the top 3, displaying the capabilities of their status as the #1 Pildao aristocratic family in the northern region. Every time the competition was held, there would be Pildao geniuses challenging the Wang family's geniuses. However, there were very few who would emerge victorious. Wang Luo wore a mask and assumed the name of Wang Qi as he participated in this Pildao competition. Chu Zan sighed endlessly, as expected of a son of fate. He was well versed in the art of pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, as well as the art of showing off and slapping his enemies' faces. It could be predicted that in the Pildao competition's finals, Wang Luo would crush all the geniuses and even push the Wang family's geniuses into the pit of despair. After that, he would take off his mask and expose his true identity. He would make the Wang family a joke in the northern region. His fiancée who had abandoned him and broken off the engagement would also be filled with regret. The forces that were not on good terms with the Wang family would extend olive branches one after another. Chu Zan could easily envision how the Pildao competition would develop and unfold. He could see just how Wang Luo was going to show off and slap them on their faces. He deactivated the Heaven Spying Mirror and did not continue to pay attention to him. He took out the myriad heavenly mirror. The first thing he did was to connect to Qin Ying. Qin Ying now looked both wild and beautiful. His simp of a cousin had become more infatuated with him. He was already at the 5th level of the Emperor realm, and was about to break through to the 6th level of the Emperor realm. Qin Ying's strength had increased rapidly. Next, he connected to where Ren Chang was. At this moment, Ren Chang was surrounded by the aura of life and death. His spiritual power was undergoing a transformation. He would soon reach the divine realm. Chu Zan continued to use the myriad heavenly mirror to connect to the various regions and zones at random. However, he did not discover anything interesting. After deactivating the myriad heavenly mirror, he took out the Tao-seeking mirror. After injecting his spiritual power, the compass needle on the mirror started to rotate. As it rotated around and around, just when Chu Zan thought that he would find nothing again this time, a white dot suddenly appeared on the surface of the mirror. As the needle rotated, the white dot became clearer and clearer. Chu Zan was excited. Had he actually found a Tao realm expert? His spiritual power and soul power were being quickly consumed by the mirror. Chu Zan hurriedly swallowed a bottle of medicinal pills and quickly refined the medicinal effects to maintain the consumption of his spiritual power and soul power. A minute later, the white dot on the surface of the mirror finally transformed into the shape of a blurry little human, and the mirror recorded a wisp of the other party's aura. Chu Zan had also reached his limit. He hurriedly moved that wisp of Tao aura into the origin Tao crystal to establish a connection. He then deactivated the Tao-seeking mirror and started swallowing medicinal pills to recover his spiritual power. For the time being, he paid no attention to that Tao realm expert. Before communicating with the other party, he needed to think about how he could deceive the other party into believing that he was a super big shot. After all, the Tao realm was different from the heaven realm and the divine realm. It would not be easy to deceive this person. Chapter 156, Deceiving a Tao realm expert. In an unknown place far away, a skinny old man was seated cross-legged in a cultivation abode filled with Tao aura. He suddenly opened his eyes and waved his hand. A wave of Tao power spread throughout his body, and his eyes shone. A 3-inch small sword floated above his head, which emitted an intense aura. Which Taoist is spying on me? After waiting a long while, there was no response. He frowned. He felt that he had suddenly gained a connection with something. It was as if he could communicate with someone or something. The other party had recorded a strand of his aura. What treasure was that? He had tried deducing it several times, trying to find its whereabouts and particulars. However, he could not discover anything concrete. Furthermore, he was being rejected by the Great Tao. It seemed as though the Great Tao would not allow him to forcefully search for the other party. It was too terrifying. The other party's strength was clearly above his. Fellow Taoist, may I know why you are contacting me? ... After realizing how powerful the other party was, Ying Kong's tone became gentler as he asked. No one replied. Ying Kong's frown became deeper and deeper. His heart was uneasy. Was this a blessing or a curse? Should he find a few close friends to discuss this? Fellow Taoist, he tried contacting the other party again. After a long while, a message was finally transmitted over. Words appeared directly in his Tao rhyme. Little friend, don't be rash. Since you possess some fate with me, stay a while. This is your opportunity. Little friend, Ying Kong was extremely angry. He was a Tao realm expert, not some random weakling. The other party actually called him, little friend. However, when he thought about it, the other party's strength was above his. Was this person really an old monster? He frowned and replied with extreme reluctance, may I ask Senior's honorific title? Honorific title? The other party seemed to be deep in thought. After a while, another message was transmitted over. Countless little fellows like you, or those who are stronger than you, once called me eternal, immortal, handsome, unparalleled, mighty, virtuous, supreme and holy #1 Tao Master in the myriad realms. Ying Kong's brows twitched. What an awesome title. Yet, why had he never heard of such an expert before? Little friend, cultivate well. There will be people coming here to exchange ideas one after another in the future. After the message was transmitted over, that unknown existence fell silent. Ying Kong frowned and pondered. Was it a fortuitous encounter or a scam? Or was it a calamity? Should he reveal this matter to a few close friends and discuss countermeasures? What if it really was an opportunity? Ying Kong waved his hand and imbued his Tao aura into a jade talisman, using it as a carrier to receive and transmit messages. Chu Zan did not interact much with Ying Kong. After all, the other party was a Tao realm existence. He did not want to risk exposing himself. He did not even send a voice transmission. He directly changed the Origin Dao Crystal's communication method to only transmit messages. Keep working hard. Connect with a few more Dao Realm experts and have them join as well. This is a Dao Realm chat group. He had finally found his first Dao Realm expert. This meant that Dao Realm experts existed in the 9 zones. However, he had no idea where they were hiding. The Dao-seeking mirror did not indicate distance, so it was entirely possible that the other party was extremely far away. It was even possible that they were in an independent mystic realm. He had recorded a wisp of the other party's aura, and it was the other party's Dao aura that maintained this wisp of aura. Moreover, it was done passively. The other party was unable to sever the Dao aura used to maintain it. Of course, this bit of Dao aura consumption would not be a burden to them. However, this also meant that the other party would be using their Dao aura to help Chuzan nurture the Origin Dao Crystal. After recording the first wisp of the Dao Realm expert's aura and establishing a connection, Chuzan could sense that the Dao principles that the Origin Dao Crystal emitted had grown slightly stronger. Over the next half a month, Chuzan did not discover the existence of a second Dao Realm expert, though he did find out the name of the one Dao Realm expert that he had connected to, Ying Kong. A month passed. Chuzan occasionally chatted with Ying Kong. During this time, Ying Kong had tried to ask him for advice. In reality, the other party wanted to verify if he was really an awesome old monster. In the end, when Chuzan heard the question he asked, he was briefly stunned. Was the Dao realm just that? Was Ying Kong's comprehension of the great Dao so low that it was inferior to even his own? Could the other party have asked such a stupid question on purpose? On second thought, Chuzan understood. The cultivation techniques he cultivated and the comprehension of those techniques were instilled into him by the system. Furthermore, with his divine soul's Dao intent, his comprehension of the great Dao had reached an extremely high realm. The only thing that was lacking was his cultivation level. Therefore, even if his cultivation level was not high enough, he could still dispel Ying Kong's doubts by answering his Dao realm questions. It was just like how he managed to dispel Ren Chenghei's doubts back then. Of course, Chuzan did not dare to guarantee that he could answer all of Ying Kong's questions. After all, his cultivation level was still miles away from the Dao realm. In order not to reveal any flaws, Chuzan only gave Ying Kong a few pointers and did not allow him to continue asking other questions. Even so, Ying Kong immediately became much more respectful. He now believed that Chuzan was an old senior monster. Ying Kong was inwardly excited. This was a great opportunity. Fortunately, he did not look for those few close friends of his. This opportunity had to be firmly grasped in his hands. Thank you, Senior, for answering my questions. Actually, Chuzan's worries were unnecessary. Ying Kong was very tactful. How would he dare to be greedy if he could get Senior to answer even some of his questions? At least for a short period of time, he would not express the doubts in his heart without a suitable opportunity. If he asked too many times, then Senior might become unhappy and feel that he was greedy. Would Senior then chase him out of the Dao Realm chat group? Little friend Ying, cultivate well. The great Dao is endless. You have to constantly forge your own Dao aura so that you can take a step forward and comprehend the great Dao more effectively. Chuzan spoke after some deliberation. He wanted Ying Kong to take the initiative to develop his Dao aura so that it would nurture the Origin Dao Crystal. Chuzan had already thought about this matter the moment he resolved Ying Kong's doubts. He wanted to use this opportunity to deceive him. Senior, please enlighten me on how to forge my Dao aura. Ying Kong asked respectfully. Dao realm cultivators cultivated Dao aura and condensed Dao principles. Could Dao aura be forged? Ying Kong had never heard of such a thing. It's very simple. Continuously expand your Dao aura and continuously condense your Dao aura. Every time you expand your Dao aura and condense it again, you will gain new insights into the great Dao. It's just like refining artifacts. Only by continuously forging can you refine a powerful artifact. Dao aura is the same. If you repeatedly do this, your Dao aura will grow stronger. Although Chuzan was trying to deceive Ying Kong, he was not bluffing. There was a certain basis to his words. By repeatedly expending and condensing one's Dao aura, new insights would indeed appear during the process. It would also allow the Dao aura to grow stronger. Ying Zhengkong seemed to fall into a state of deep thought as he said, Senior, I understand. This child is worth teaching. Chuzan looked very gratified. He stared at the Origin Dao Crystal, waiting for it to absorb the Dao aura that Ying Kong consumed. In order to ensure that the Origin Dao Crystal could absorb the Dao aura that Ying Kong had consumed, he added, the best method to consume Dao aura is not through combat, but rather to dispel your Dao aura by yourself and condense it again. Thank you for your guidance, Senior. Ying Kong took a deep breath and shook the Dao aura around his body. It was continuously pushed out and dissipated. A third of his Dao aura was consumed in the blink of an eye. Chapter 157, Heavenly Dao Talisman Plan. Chu Zan looked at the origin Dao crystal, and noticed that its Dao aura had instantly become several times stronger. Its Dao aura started to solidify, causing some new changes to occur inside the pocket dimension. He was overjoyed. As expected, he had successfully deceived Ying Kong. As long as Ying Kong consumed his Dao aura every few days, it would not be long before the pocket dimension could be upgraded again. In his eyes, Dao realm experts were treasures. One was not enough. He had to find a few more to contribute to the growth of the origin Dao crystal. This was the first time Ying Kong took the initiative to disperse and expel his Dao aura from his body. He was initially very careful, afraid that something would go wrong. After all, he had never heard of anyone taking the initiative to disperse their Dao aura. Who knew if something would go wrong? He did not have 100% confidence in that senior. He was also considered an old monster by others. He had encountered too many sinister people and witnessed too many schemes. The Dao aura was dispersed and disappeared in an instant. He could vaguely sense that it seemed to have returned to the great Dao. After dispelling a third of his Dao aura, Ying Kong tried to condense his Dao aura. Wisps of Dao aura converged upon him from the great Dao. In that instant, Ying Kong fell into a mysterious state of enlightenment. It was the same state of profound enlightenment he had when he broke through to the Dao realm. He gained new insights. The bottleneck that he had been stuck at for many years began to loosen a little. Ying Kong was overjoyed. He felt respect for Chu Zan and finally saw hope for his cultivation level to rise again. In the future, Ying Kong continued to dispel his Dao aura and condense it again. Although he did not gain new insights every time, as he dispelled and condensed it repeatedly, the strength of his Dao aura seemed to grow. He saw the hope of increasing his cultivation level again, which made him cultivate assiduously. Chu Zan looked at the Dao aura and Dao principles that seeped out from the origin Dao crystal. More and more seeped out. The Dao principles that seeped out from the origin Dao crystal began to gradually improve. Every once in a while, the pocket dimension would undergo new changes. He was overjoyed. Ying Kong was really a diligent person. Unfortunately, he did not discover the existence of other Dao realm experts. Chu Zan had Buddha Nanwu cultivate next to the origin Dao crystal so that he could sense the Dao aura more closely. It would help him break through to the divine realm even faster. After successfully deceiving Ying Kong, Chu Zan did not delude himself. He still did not have much understanding of the Dao realm. The gap in his and their cultivation realms was undoubtedly a huge shortcoming. He had to raise his cultivation level. Many times, he opted not to communicate with Ying Kong. After all, if he said something wrong, it would affect his image. Only when he had a complete understanding of the Dao realm could he deceive Ying Kong flawlessly. Your disciple Ding Yu has entered a forbidden ancient ruin by mistake. His fate has grown even stronger. You have been rewarded with 500 years worth of cultivation. A reward from the system suddenly appeared. Chu Zan was stunned. Ding Yu had entered a forbidden ancient ruin by mistake and his fate had grown stronger. As expected, children of fate had to be released into the outside world. This had given him an unexpected surprise. He received the reward. After receiving 500 years worth of cultivation, he successfully advanced to the 5th level of the heaven realm. His strength had soared again. He was one step closer to the divine realm. Chu Zan began to look forward to the system reward that Wang Luo would earn him. He took out the heaven spying mirror and connected it to Ding Yu's mark. A ray of light appeared in the mirror. In the image projection, he could see a secret realm. One could see colorful lights everywhere. Every ray of light represented a sword gleam. At this moment, Ding Yu was seated cross-legged in the center of the lights. A sword was floating in front of him. The body of the sword was as black as ink, and it exuded a fierce aura. It was not the divine sword that Chu Zan gave him, so it had to be a divine sword from this ancient forbidden ruin. At this moment, this fierce sword was acknowledging Ding Yu as its master. Ding Yu was cultivating a sword Dao technique as well, which was probably the cultivation inheritance of this ancient forbidden ruin. Ding Yu's cultivation had already reached the 4th level of the Emperor realm. Chu Zan looked at him for a while longer before deactivating the heaven spying mirror. That divine sword looked extremely fierce, and did not seem like a sword from a righteous faction. Still, Chuzan was not bothered if it had any negative effects. Ding Yu was the southern region's son of fate, how could anything here affect him so easily? Moreover, Ding Yu still had the divine sword he had bestowed upon him. In terms of quality, it was no weaker than that fierce sword. In fact, it was even a level higher. Chuzan then turned his attention to Wang Luo. He had already smoothly entered the semi-finals and raised his displayed cultivation to the first level of the Emperor realm. His performance in the Grand Pill Dao competition was eye-catching. His actual cultivation level had also increased to the third level of the Emperor realm. Chuzan looked forward to the system reward that he would receive from this. As expected of his disciple, he was very good at showing off. He continued to cultivate. Time flowed like water, and soon another half a year passed. On this day, Shangxing came out of the pocket dimension and began to consolidate his cultivation foundation in preparation to break through to the Emperor realm. Su Shaner was already at the 5th level of the Emperor realm. Everything was going according to plan. Chuzan's life as a shut-in was very stable. Suddenly, he raised his head to look at the sky. The speed at which the southern region's laws of heaven and earth were recovering had increased a little. He had a hunch that the change had something to do with Ding Yu. He wondered what this fellow had done this time. Chu Yun also returned. She felt that her cultivation foundation was sturdy enough to attempt a breakthrough, but because the laws of heaven and earth in the southern region had not recovered yet, she was unable to break through to the Emperor realm. Chuzan allowed her to enter the universe space. At this moment, there was no longer any need to hide the fact that he was a powerful big shot. Of course, he still had to keep a low profile. Chu Yun had an expression of, as expected. Her guess was right, 13th brother was indeed very powerful. Another half a year passed. Chu Yun was the first to break through to the Emperor realm. Chuzan told her to keep a low profile and not reveal her true strength. After that, he gave her some pointers regarding the Asura ancient land. He also taught Chu Yun the secret technique of concealing her presence, as well as clarified any doubts or confusion she had about the subsequent cultivation pathway of the great Luo Emperor scripture. Chu Yun did not go out to train again. Occasionally, she would give pointers to the Chu family's alchemists. Most of the time, she would be in the small courtyard or with Su Shaner, or cultivating in the pocket dimension. She became good friends with Su Shaner. A month after Chu Yun broke through, Shangxing broke through. The first thing Shangxing did after breaking through was to refine the cross-zone communication talisman that he had been working on previously. He called it the Universal Talisman. He would also refine puppets, create a communication talisman production line, and carry out large-scale production of the item. Chuzan called Bao Hongyan over and asked the Black Moon Tower to sell the communication talisman. The restoration of the laws of heaven and earth in the southern region was speeding up. The day the Asura ancient land would open was also brought forward. It was time to start laying out the plan. The Heavenly Dao Talisman plan had officially kicked off. Once the Black Moon Tower released the communication talisman, all of the factions in the southern region bought it, most buying several sets at a time. This was especially true for the one-time communication talisman, which was used to relay highly confidential information. The large factions did not hesitate to purchase a large number of them. They were also amazed that the Black Moon Tower could develop such a communication talisman. Chuzan was also waiting for the right time to release the zone talisman so that he could secretly control the information of the entire northern zone. In less than half a month after the communication talismans were sold, Chuzan had already learned some secrets about the large factions. For example, Qin Qian had already used the trump card left behind by Qin Ying to successfully recover her Emperor realm cultivation. Bai Xiaokong, the young sect master of Baisheng Mountain, had already secretly left the southern region and had gone to the headquarters of Nine Swords Mountain in the northern region to cultivate. Chuzan also learned that, after the Great War in the southern region, Nine Swords Mountain had moved its main force to the northern region. It was now the #1 sword sect in the northern region. It was called the Nine Swords Sect and it had long been in contact with Nine Swords Mountain from the southern region. The half-step Emperor realm experts of Nine Swords Mountain would go to the Nine Swords sect of the northern region to break through to the Emperor realm after reaching a certain age. Chapter 158. Bloodline Evolution, Birth of the Heart of Buddha. Apart from the information he gleaned from the Great Qin dynasty, Chuzan also learned some secret information about the Great Qian dynasty. For example, the backer and supporter of the Great Qian dynasty was the Great Qian Palace of the central region. This secret information was obtained from the Great Qian Emperor and Prime Minister Lu Pingfeng when they talked about their preparations to welcome the Great Qian Palace to the southern region. Chu Zan did not know which faction was behind the evil imperial court, and he did not ask the evil king. However, he was sure that the faction behind the evil imperial court was not weak either. However, there were no powerful heretic cultivator factions in the northern zone. Could their backer be from outside the northern zone? With the release of the communication talisman, it became easier for the various factions to communicate. The Black Moon Tower's intelligence gathering capabilities also improved. Next, they sold the communication talismans to the rest of the large factions in the region, allowing them to smoothly communicate with the forces behind the scenes. Hence, they had access to the secrets and communications of these large factions. Chu Zan asked Su Shaner about the Great Qian Palace. The Great Qian Palace was actually the strongest faction in the central region. There had always been rumors about the existence of a divine realm patriarch within that faction. Chu Zan felt that the rumors were true. If nothing went wrong, the divine realm expert who had lured the demons into invading and tried to turn the tide at the critical moment to earn the position of human king in the northern zone probably came from the Great Qian Palace. In other words, he had founded the Great Qian Palace. Although Buddha Nanwu said that the other party had perished together with the divine realm elder of the demon race, Chu Zan did not think that was the case. They probably each had their own trump cards, so it would not be so easy for them to perish together. Buddha Nanwu had not been able to fully comprehend the situation at that time, especially the battle between the divine realm experts. The Heavenly Tao Talisman plan was implemented smoothly. Starting from the southern region, all of the information within the southern region was transmitted through the Heavenly Tao Talisman. However, some experts might not trust the communication talismans they bought. As such, the next step was to introduce the method to refine these communication talismans. They should be able to rest assured after refining it themselves, right? At that time, their true secrets would be transmitted through the communication talismans. Chu Zan suspected that the information released by the various powers at this point in time was to test the confidentiality of the communication talismans and whether there was a possibility of information being leaked. They were destined to never get an answer. Apart from Chu Zan's master access rights, the communication talismans were an extremely safe and secure way of transmitting information. Even Black Moon Tower, which sold the communication talismans, was unable to steal information from it. All the information was transmitted and monitored by the Heavenly Tao Talisman. Chu Zan did not pay much attention to it. It was only when the monitoring program he had set up was triggered that he would have the Heavenly Tao Talisman transmit the relevant information to him. He could not rush the release of the Zone Talisman. Aside from pushing the adoption of the communication talisman in the southern region, he also needed to slowly lure the higher-ups of the Black Moon Tower out step by step. He could not fish out the mastermind of the Black Moon Tower all of a sudden. A month later, a 3-star tower lord arrived in the southern region. He came for the communication talisman. After all, with the introduction of the communication talisman, the Black Moon Tower would definitely be able to make a lot of money, and their ability to transmit and gather information would also increase. In the future, the way they sold information would also change. As such, the method of refining the communication talisman had to be firmly controlled in their hands. This 3-star tower lord had come here to oversee the southern region. This person was a 6th-level Emperor Realm cultivator, and was not considered weak. Chu Zan asked Bao Hongyan to bring along a strand of his spiritual power so that he could easily control the person. After that, he would only need to take things one step at a time and secretly control the experts of the Black Moon Tower. As long as they did not deviate from the plan, Chu Zan would ignore everything else they did. Another half a year had passed since the implementation of the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan. During this period, Chu Zan had a short exchange with Ying Kong. Chu Zan's favorable impression of Ying Kong increased greatly. He was an ascetic cultivator, and the origin Tao crystal that was nurtured by his Tao aura had resulted in many changes in the pocket dimension. Chu Zan would soon be able to upgrade it. The Tao aura had almost completely pervaded the pocket dimension, and Tao principles within the world there were becoming more and more perfect. Buddha Nanwu benefited greatly from this, and he was now only half a step away from reaching the divine realm. The southern region was already under Chu Zan's control. He could find out from the Heavenly Tao Talisman at any time what plans and actions each faction was carrying out. 9 Swords Mountain and the other large factions behind the scenes had also obtained communication talismans, which made communication more convenient. Chuzan then learned that the large factions outside had already begun to prepare to return to the southern region. Chuzan sent a message to Du Yuan, asking him to secretly enter Black Moon Tower and become its protector. He would wait there for the right opportunity to take action. If any ancient ruins appeared in the southern region, the Black Moon Tower would definitely be the first to know. Du Yuan would then be able to obtain information quickly as he was in Black Moon Tower. Ding Yu had yet to come out of that ancient forbidden ruin. He was currently comprehending a sword technique. The northern region's Pill Dao competition had yet to end, though it was about to enter its final stages. Wang Luo had already attracted the attention of the various large factions. Many factions had extended olive branches to him. After all, on the surface, Wang Luo was only a genius itinerant cultivator. The Wang family had also extended an olive branch, and even intended to marry one of the daughters of direct descent to him. When Wang Luo's identity was revealed, the Wang family would lose all their credibility and become a joke of the northern region. Wang Luo's former fiancé's family had also extended an olive branch. Chuzan was looking forward to how Wang Luo would perform in the finals, how he would crush the Wang family, and how he would make the Wang family and his former fiancé's family lose all credibility. However, would his enemies fly into a rage out of humiliation and send their experts to kill Wang Luo? On this day, Chuzan had just finished cultivating and was about to take out the Dao-seeking mirror to search for Dao realm experts as usual. Suddenly, the system's reward arrived. Your disciple, Mo Luantian, has transformed his ancient demon bloodline and given birth to the heart of Buddha. His fate has undergone a transformation, affecting the fate of the demon zone. You have been rewarded with a soul journey through the great Dao. His bloodline had transformed and he had given birth to the heart of Buddha. It had even affected the fate of the demon zone. What had Mo Luantian done? This fellow was really fated with Buddhism. He could comprehend Buddhist Dharma at any time and even gave birth to the heart of Buddha. He did not receive the reward immediately, but took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Mo Luantian. An image projection soon materialized. Corpses littered the ground. Demonic power surged and Buddhist light shone. A battle was taking place here. On one side was naturally Mo Luantian. His opponent seemed to be some from the heavenly demon tribe who had reached the 7th level of the Emperor realm. On the other hand, Mo Luantian had yet to reach the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. In terms of cultivation, Mo Luantian was weaker, but Buddhist Dharma had a restraining effect on demonic power. Thus, both sides fought fiercely. That 7th level Emperor realm heavenly demon tribe member was not an ordinary Emperor realm expert. He was on the same level as a heaven's blessed character. Mo Luantian was still garbed in that spotless white robe. However, over the course of the fight, he had used up a lot of spiritual power. He cultivated Buddhist power, and the medicinal pills from the demon zone did not have much effect on him. He lacked medicinal pills that could recover his Buddhist power. Now, Mo Luantian had gradually fallen into a disadvantageous state. Chuzan glanced at the corpses on the ground. They were all from the demon race, and one of them was from the heavenly demon tribe. He was also an Emperor realm expert. They were all dead. Mo Luantian had been surrounded and attacked, yet only this 7th level Emperor realm young expert from the heavenly demon tribe was left. Damn Baldi, you killed my younger brother. Go to hell. Buddha, I want to see how this Buddha of yours can survive under my attacks. Mo Luantian suddenly opened his heavenly eye, and golden light bloomed as his figure soared up. He then shouted, Mighty Heavenly Dragon. Chapter 159, Soul Journey Through the Great Tao. Roar. A dragon's roar could be heard as the image of a dragon condensed from Buddhist light flew out from behind Mo Luantian. It circled around and looked down as it charged towards the young man from the heavenly demon tribe. At this moment, Mo Luantian's aura surged and the Buddhist light shone brightly. He had actually broken through to the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. He wielded the saber in his right hand and held the alms bowl in his left hand. The Buddhist light dragon coiled around and directly pressed down on the young man from the heavenly demon tribe. The expression of the young man from the heavenly demon tribe changed drastically. That Buddhist light dragon was too powerful. No one knew what kind of secret technique it was. It directly suppressed him. Even the demonic power in his body could not circulate smoothly. From today onwards, this penniless monk is no longer Mo Luantian. This penniless monk is now the demon Buddha. Rumble. As Mo Luantian's voice echoed, a unique aura was exuded from his body. He looked solemn and calm, and there was a trace of demonic nature lurking within him. The young man from the heavenly demon tribe was terrified. He did not even have time to escape or beg for mercy. His body shattered, and his soul was absorbed into the alms bowl. Mo Luantian, or rather, Demon Buddha, took a few deep breaths and quickly left the battlefield. He found a remote place to recover and heal. Chuzan watched this scene play out from beginning to end and sighed in his heart. Mo Luantian was really fated with Buddhism, though he was not a proper Buddha. He still had that slight inkling of demonic nature. Moreover, he still had his killing intent. Demon Buddha. His new name suited him well. After watching Demon Buddha's battle, Chuzan had identified his flaws. It was time for him to make up for the latter's shortcomings. For example, the refining method of medicinal pills that could recover Buddhist power, learning array formations and restrictions, and so on. How could a Buddha not know the Buddhist sect's restrictions? At the same time, it was time to give him prayer beads. Monks without prayer beads lacked authenticity. Chuzan immediately refined prayer beads. Every prayer bead was engraved with restrictions and array formations. It could be considered one of Demon Buddha's future trump cards. After he finished his preparations, Chuzan revealed his presence to Demon Buddha. Demon Buddha opened his eyes and respectfully knelt on the ground. Disciple greets master. Rise, Chuzan solemnly replied. I already know about your matter. Since you have already developed a Buddhist heart and comprehended Buddhist Dharma, I will bestow upon you the Buddhist prayer beads today. Thank you, master. Demon Buddha put his palms together and responded respectfully. Since you have comprehended the mighty heavenly dragon technique, I will bestow upon you the mighty Buddha prayer beads. Chuzan waved his hand and the prayer beads were transmitted over. At the same time, he also transmitted over the array formation manual and the Buddhist pill refinement technique. Demon Buddha respectfully received it. Thank you, master. He clasped his hands together and prostrated himself on the ground. Chuzan had given him everything he needed. He then asked Demon Buddha, do you have any doubts or things you are confused about? Demon Buddha said, yes, I do. I hope that master can clarify my doubts. Speak. Demon Buddha then asked Chuzan about certain areas that he was unsure about in terms of his cultivation as well as some questions about Buddhist Dharma. After Chuzan heard him out, he first clarified the doubts Demon Buddha had about cultivation. He then talked about Buddhist Dharma, explaining the techniques to him in detail. This time, he did not lie. He was afraid that he would accidentally mislead Demon Buddha again. His disciple was no longer a proper monk, and had a demonic nature. If he continued to deceive, he did not know how far astray he would go. After the explanation, Chuzan deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror. He then examined the system's reward. The soul journeys through the great Tao for no more than a day. Chuzan's heart pounded violently. The system was awesome. Would his strength not soar after journeying through the great Tao? Moreover, his comprehension of the great Tao had reached an extremely high level. The great Tao was formless, but omnipresent. It was higher than the laws of heaven and earth. It could not be isolated or rejected, and was omnipresent. Some secret realms could isolate the existence of the laws of heaven and earth. However, they could not isolate the great Tao. Tao realm cultivators cultivated the great Tao. They used Tao aura to nourish themselves and cultivate Tao power. However, Tao realm cultivators were extremely insignificant in the face of the great Tao. The great Tao had no limits. Now, he actually had the chance to journey through the great Tao. This was equivalent to directly entering the great Tao. How could Chuzan not be excited? After my soul journeys through the great Tao, it shouldn't be a problem for me to break through to the divine realm. What a pleasant surprise. He originally thought that breaking through to the divine realm would require quite a bit of time. He never thought that the Mo Luantian's ancient demonic bloodline would transform, giving birth to a Buddhist heart, which in turn triggered the change in the fate of the demon zone and the system's reward. Furthermore, it was such a generous reward. Chuzan absorbed the origin Tao crystal into his divine soul and immediately received the reward. In an instant, he felt as if he was immersed in a state of profound comprehension. At the same time, countless Tao auras and Tao principles surrounded him. His divine soul had already been imbued with Tao intent, and now, it was even imbued with Tao principles and was filled with Tao aura. It was almost as if he was the incarnation of the great Tao. After an unknown amount of time passed, Chuzan discovered that his divine soul had appeared in an unknown place. The ground beneath his feet was hazy and boundless. It was like a great river, but also like the heavens. He only felt that countless Tao principles surrounded him, and Tao intent and Tao aura was pouring into his divine soul. The chaos bell in his divine soul was emitting a hazy radiance. Was this the great Tao? Chuzan closed his eyes and opened them again. He looked around, but could not see anything beyond the haze. The Great Tao was formless. Yet, he was inside the formless Great Tao. He looked down and stepped on the hazy, seemingly unfathomable and invisible river that flowed beneath his feet. His feet also felt like they were stepping on clouds. The Tao principles, Tao intent, and Tao auras around him were endless. There was no end, and no limit. Chu Zan was astonished. Was this the Great Tao? He took out the origin Tao crystal from his divine soul and held it in his hand. The surrounding Tao intent, Tao principles, and Tao aura surged wildly into the origin Tao crystal. The origin Tao crystal emitted a hazy glow while its Tao was being perfected. It now even contained a miniature Great Tao. Chu Zan praised his own cleverness. As expected, bringing along the origin Tao crystal was the right choice. If he directly nurtured it inside the Great Tao, the speed of its evolution would definitely be extremely fast. After his divine soul returned, the pocket dimension would probably be upgraded. Furthermore, the connection between the origin Tao crystal and the Great Tao would become even stronger. In fact, as long as one's cultivation level was strong enough, they would be able to use the origin Tao crystal to reach the Great Tao. Chu Zan was overjoyed. There was not much to look at inside the Great Tao, yet it also seemed like all sorts of scenery existed here. Chu Zan took a step forward. After all, his soul could not journey through Great Tao for more than a day, so he had to go as far as possible, gain as much insights as possible and increase his affinity with the Great Tao as much as possible. Chu Zan held the origin Tao crystal in one hand as he walked through the Great Tao. He felt like the master of the Great Tao as he strolled around leisurely. He was not worried about encountering danger. There was no one in the Great Tao and, even if there were, there was no need to be afraid. His divine soul journeying through the Great Tao was a reward from the system. Naturally, it would protect him. Furthermore, he held the origin Tao crystal and the chaos bell in his divine soul. Given the presence of Tao intent in his body, even Tao realm experts would not be able to threaten him while he was inside the Great Tao. Attacking him here would be tantamount to provoking the Great Tao. As Chu Zan walked on, he looked around. Boundless enlightenment surged in, and his divine soul continued to transform and strengthen. It was as if he was no longer a divine soul body, but part of the Great Tao itself. He did not know how far he had walked, nor did he know how much time had passed. Suddenly, Chu Zan saw a figure standing not too far away. The figure was walking slowly, trying to move forward. There were people on this road with him. Chapter 160. The person on the path of the Great Tao, Hong Yuanchu. Chu Zan was extremely shocked. Those who were able to come to the Great Tao were naturally super big shots. Based on his current knowledge, Tao realm cultivators were unable to come to the Great Tao and were still at the stage of comprehending the Great Tao. However, what they cultivated was Tao aura and Tao principles. This person was definitely a supreme being who had surpassed the Tao realm. Chu Zan hesitated. Should he go up and greet him? Although he had come up with his own grandiose honorific name, that was just to fool people. The person in front was a real big shot, and not someone like him. After a moment of hesitation, Chu Zan decided to go up and greet him and get to know him. He could ask for a wisp of the other party's Tao aura and record it into the origin Tao crystal so that they could communicate in the future. With that, the origin Tao crystal chat group would possess a true big shot. Chu Zan looked at his divine soul body. His Tao intent was full to the brim, and his Tao aura was entwined with the Great Tao, as if he was part of it. As for the other party, although his Tao intent was also full to the brim, his Tao was not as entwined. Compared to Chu Zan's current state, he was much weaker. Furthermore, that person was walking slowly through the Great Tao. He seemed to be having a hard time. Since he himself was walking with ease, he should be able to scare him, right? He would play things by ear. If he could deceive him, he would do so. At the very least, he should not appear inferior to the other party in terms of seniority. Chu Zan walked toward the other party. That person's figure was tall and imposing, and filled with a domineering aura. His hands were behind his back, and the aura of a big shot was undoubtedly on full display. Hong Yuanchu was walking step by step, comprehending the path of the Great Tao to make up for the deficiencies of his own Great Tao. Furthermore, he was carefully opening his own Great Tao path. Suddenly, he saw a person strolling leisurely toward him. He was shocked. At a glance, this person seemed to have a rather small stature, but this person's strength was above his own. Hong Yuanchu stopped walking. It was a good opportunity to meet experts of the same cultivation level, especially given the fact that the other party was stronger than him. On the path of the Great Tao, it was very rare to meet someone of the same realm by chance. It was hard to find someone of the same realm, as there were probably only a few people who had reached this level in the world. It could be considered fate to meet one. When Chuzan approached, Hong Yuanchu cupped his hands and greeted. Hong Yuanchu pays his respects to fellow Taoist. This was the respect that the weaker had for the stronger. Although he felt that he was not that much weaker, he still acknowledged that he was the weaker party here. Chuzan pays his respects to fellow Taoist. This time, Chuzan did not use the name that he had lied about, but used his real name. The other party called him fellow Taoist, tacitly acknowledging that Chuzan was a little stronger, but also that he belonged to the same generation. Chuzan naturally would not deny it, even if he was in truth far weaker. However, his divine soul had been imbued with Tao intent, and his Tao aura was entwined around him, seemingly connected to the great Tao. One look was enough to tell anyone that he was a big shot. Hong Yuanchu searched his memories, but could not recall ever hearing of such an expert of the same realm. He also did not know which era Chuzan was from. No one knew how many experts of this realm there were in the world. Perhaps this person had just come out of seclusion after countless years of cultivation. Hong Yuanchu continued asking, Taoist brother, how many Taoyuans have you persisted? Chuzan understood in his heart that Hong Yuanchu had already reached the realm where one could tread their own Tao path. This could be called the Taoyuan realm. Of course, treading upon one's own Tao path did not mean that one surpassed the Great Tao, nor was it a departure from the Great Tao. Instead, experts of this level used their own comprehension to open up their own Tao path on the Great Tao. It could barely be considered as being on par with the Great Tao. He was indeed a true big shot. How many Taoyuans had he persisted? Chuzan calculated inwardly. Did Taoyuan refer to time? The Taoyuan realm probably no longer involved small realms and thresholds. According to his speculation, there were no specific realms in the Tao opening realm. Cultivators at this level compared strength based on the length of the Taoyuans they had persisted. The Great Tao was endless. How many Taoyuans? Chuzan seemed to be in a state of deep thought. After a long while, he said, I don't really remember. I went into seclusion for a long time. I don't know how many Taoyuans I have been around for. Hong Yuanchu suddenly understood. If his guess was correct, this was a fellow Taoist who had been in seclusion for a long time and had just come out recently. Fellow Taoist Hong, how many Taoyuans have you persisted for? Chuzan asked. Close to 2 Taoyuans. Hong Yuanchu sighed and said, I reached the Tao realm during the previous Taoyuan, and I successfully opened and tread upon my first Tao path at the end of that Taoyuan. I then opened my second Tao path. By the end of this Taoyuan, I will have tread upon 2 Tao paths. Chuzan's heart trembled. The end of a Taoyuan. The Taoyuan he was on was about to end. He had a bad premonition that the end of a Taoyuan would definitely not be peaceful. He still knew too little. In order not to expose himself, Chuzan naturally could not directly ask the questions that he had in his heart. He could keep in touch with Hong Yuanchu and slowly figure out the Taoyuan realm in the future. The Tao path is difficult, the Great Tao is difficult. Hong Yuanchu sighed endlessly. The opening of 2 Tao paths made him feel that his progress was limited and painstakingly slow. Seeking the Great Tao is fun. At our current level, opening Tao paths is fun. The path is under our feet, and is guided by our own will. Wherever we go, it goes. Chuzan said in a very pretentious manner. The pursuit of the Great Tao, opening Tao paths is fun. Hong Yuanchu muttered to himself and then sighed. Taoist brother's state of mind is better than mine. Thank you for the lesson. Chuzan smiled slightly, but he did not want to stay any longer. After all, if he said too much, he might end up exposing himself as a fake. After all, Chuzan did not know anything about opening the Tao path. It was impossible to deceive this big shot further. If Hong Yuanchu were to discuss the Tao with him, it would be a tragedy. Moreover, he did not know how much time had passed. If his time here came to an end and his divine soul returned, he would miss the chance to establish a connection with Hong Yuanchu. Therefore, Chuzan held the origin Tao crystal in his hand and said with a smile, I have a treasure that will allow us to communicate with each other regardless of how far apart we are. Furthermore, our respective locations will remain hidden, and no one will be able to discover where the others are through this treasure. This is a supreme treasure that is directly connected to the Great Tao. Fellow Taoist Hong, why don't you leave behind a strand of your Tao aura and communicate with us? If you know other fellow Taoists, you can also recommend them to us. Hong Yuanchu looked at the origin Tao crystal in his hand and was secretly shocked. What kind of supreme treasure was this? From a brief glance, it was almost as if he could see a nascent great Tao germinating inside it. Furthermore, it had an inexplicable connection with the great Tao. He became even more certain that Chu Zan was stronger than him and that the latter's Tao paths were broader than his. That's great. Hong Yuanchu raised his hand and sent a wisp of his own Tao aura into the origin Tao crystal. In an instant, he sensed that there was a trace of connection with the origin Tao crystal. He could now transmit and receive information through his Tao aura. Of course, he could also transfer the messages to a specific Tao artifact to display. If there are fellow Taoists, or little fellows who have already entered the Tao realm, they can also join in. They have been in secluded meditation for countless years, and they also need some excitement in their lives. It is good to discuss the Tao, and they'll be able to verify their conjectures through discussion. The origin Tao crystal had recorded Hong Yuanchu's Tao aura. Chu Zan heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally established a connection with a big shot. At the same time, he also had designs on Hong Yuanchu's friends or disciples. That works too, Hong Yuanchu pondered for a moment. When he remembered that he was now at the end of his second Daoyuan, he nodded in agreement. They were both in the Daoyuan realm. Even if Chu Zan was stronger, it would not be easy for him to ambush and kill someone who was also in the Daoyuan realm. After all, the Daoyuan realm was almost on par with the Great Tao. It was not easy to kill someone just like that. Therefore, Hong Yuanchu was not afraid of whether there were any conspiracies or tricks behind his actions.